for tuning in for our first weekly Intel report here on Nemico Network for the week of January 11th, 2023. It's great to be back. It's great to see everybody tuning in this evening. For those that are watching live, thank you guys so much for taking some time out of your day to stop by here and get updated on what's going on in not just Ukraine now, but we'll be covering a wide range of subjects across the globe. To those of you that are tuning in when this is uploaded after it's live, thank you so much for watching this video and stopping by to get yourselves filled in on what is going on again in the world. We'll be covering a wide range of topics this evening. Of course, we'll be starting with all of our Ukraine news. We'll be covering not only the main headlines, but we'll be diving into some of our community aggregated reporting, as well as some of the open source intelligence data that we have on what's going on the ground in Ukraine, not just in Ukraine, but geopolitically across the playing field here. We'll also be diving into China and Taiwan, showing you guys a little bit about what's been going on there in that situation down in the South Pacific. We'll also be covering a few other headlines this evening. We'll also be looking at some of our raw open source intelligence data. We'll be looking at maps, showing you guys not only what's going on in Ukraine on the ground with some of those force movements, some of those troop movements, some of the battles that are ongoing in Ukraine, but we'll also be taking a look at some of our open source data for China and Taiwan as well as a few other things. We'll be covering some cyber stuff later in the show as well. And of course, we'll always wrap everything up, as usual, with a Q&A at the end of the show. So stick around for that if you have questions or anything you'd want to say. You can we can answer those questions towards the end of the show. Before we get started this evening, I have a few things to address here. First of all, if you're just tuning in, make sure to hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. It's the best way to get notified when new videos or streams go live. I have a lot of new video content that I'm working on in the background for you guys, and I'm really excited to bring you. I'll be focusing more on the video content going forward here on the channel. Of course, we will have these weekly intel reports, which now don't just cover Ukraine, but a broad range of subjects. I've been wanting to branch out into some other topics for quite a while, but of course we'll still be focusing primarily on the events taking place in Ukraine and surrounding the war. If you haven't already, again, like, subscribe. Best way to support the channel is to like and subscribe. Make sure you comment and share the stream. It's the best way to help other people find this information. I just want to say a quick hello to all of my usuals that are tuning in tonight, and I see quite a few new faces as well tuning in. Again, it's always great to have you guys stopping by here, stopping by the stream, and joining us and getting this information, not only from our community, but from these open source intelligence resources that we have available at our fingertips. Another thing I'd like to address tonight, I have a little shout out here that I've been wanting to give for quite a while. As I've been away, there's quite a few people over on the Discord server, which by the way has remained very active in recent months while I was away on break. Some of those individuals have taken it upon themselves to start doing some reporting of their own, which I highly condone and encourage. Right back to the start of the Ukraine war, back in February, when this all started, when we started congregating here on these streams, even back then, we started having an influence on people. We started seeing people, taking up the gauntlet, so to speak, and putting in the work in to not only gather open source intelligence, but to report and share the news and spread that information around. One of those people I'd like to give a shout out here to tonight. I was going to do it at the end of the show, but I decided I'd do it right up front since he's here in the chat joining us. Kayuka, one of the big power posters, as I used to call them, over on the Discord server in the Situation Room. He started a little YouTube channel called The Account, and he's been doing really great short 10 to 15 minute intel reports on, or as he calls them, operational intel summaries on the war in Ukraine. They are a great resource if you guys are looking for any other creators in the space to get good daily information from. I highly recommend the account. Again, we're not going to be doing daily updates anymore on Ukraine. However, I should state that we are running not one but two 24/7 open source intelligence data streams. Similar to our cam streams that we had back at the beginning of the war, but we're more focusing on the open source intelligence aspects, things like those maps, different tools that we have at our disposal to show real-time data. Of course, we still do have some cameras that we're showing on those streams, but nevertheless, we will be giving breaking news reports on those Intel streams when they happen. So if we get big news that comes in, of course, I'll always go live. If it's something major, I'll hop on there and I'll give you guys some on-the-spot reporting for those topics. But if you would like a consistent, everyday update on the war in Ukraine, I highly recommend. In fact, my number one recommendation would be to go subscribe over here to the account. He's still at a humble 213 subscribers. I would really like to see us get that number bumped up a bit. He's been doing some really great work. In fact, I believe his first report was back, over a month ago now. So he's been hard working. He's been at it day after day, bringing us these reports, and he deserves the love and attention, guys. If you want to go over there and subscribe to the account, again, that's Kayuka from over on the Discord server, and we'll be bringing up a few of his reports. His reports that are in the Situation Room over on the Discord channel, as people are still posting there daily. We'll be probably seeing a few of his posts over there later in the evening when we get to the community aggregated news section of this stream. Of course, we'll be talking about some of the ongoing events in Ukraine. So, again, to start off with tonight, we're going to start with Ukraine. We're going to go through first all of our main headlines, and then we will get into some of that community aggregated news and reporting, and then I'll kind of wrap up the Ukraine section, looking at some of these individual open source intelligence tools. I might even interact a little bit with the chat when we do that, maybe answer a few questions, but again, primarily we'll be doing Q&A at the end of the show. Again, thank you to everybody that stopped by. I see a whole bunch of new faces in the chat here, as well as quite a few familiar ones as well. Without further ado, we're going to get right into things. I got a lot of news to go over tonight. So again, our old reports, our daily reports, were about an hour. These weekly reports, I'm expecting to make them about 2 hours on average, maybe even 3 hours. I don't kind of have a time limit for them. I kind of want to keep them in around the 2-hour range, but we have a lot of news to go through here, so we're going to get right into it. First thing, I'm going to go switch over to one of our battle maps here, which again we'll be discussing quite a bit over the course of the show. First, I'm going to get right into the primary headlines here. First, however, I got to get that map up in front of me, and let's get our headlines here. Okay, so again, there's been a lot going on especially over the past, I would say, week or two since New Year's, Christmas. Things have ramped up a little bit here in Ukraine. For a while there, things had stagnated quite a lot on the front line along eastern Ukraine. However, we've had quite a few developments over the past 7 to 10 days. So I'll be kind of doing a big breakdown of everything that's been happening here over the past, I would say, about 10 days, maybe even reaching back into the 2-week range. Kayuka, by the way, sorry, I forgot to mention, if you would like to just post a link in YouTube chat, if it'll let you, you can go ahead and do that. If not, I'll post one at the end of the show here. I should have done that. A link in the live chat there where you guys can go and subscribe to the account. That's the name of the channel, is the account. Again, really good stuff. I'll put a link in the live chat towards the end of the show if you can't get one in there. Yeah, again, it's called the account. Yeah, I see quite a few people were confused about that. I think it's a great name for a channel. Anyway, hopping right into it. We got a lot to cover here in Ukraine. Big story today. The head of Russia's Wagner mercenary group has claimed its forces have completed the takeover of the Ukrainian town of Soledar, again, which later has been kind of contested by the Ukrainians. They've come out and said that there's still fighting ongoing in Soledar. Again, that's near Bakhmut. which, if confirmed, would mark Moscow's first major battlefield success since last summer. Again, things have stagnated quite a lot there on the front lines in Ukraine. Wagner units have taken the whole territory of Soledar under control, again, said the head of Russia's Wagner mercenary group in an audio message released on his Telegram channel late Tuesday. Soledar, home to those huge salt mines, which we've heard a lot about in the news lately, has symbolic military and commercial value for Russia. That's why they're really throwing everything they got at Bakhmut and Soledar, is mainly for those salt mines, amongst a few other things there. And of course, we'll get into all of these specifics of those movements around Bakhmut and Soledar later in the evening. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky thanked the heroic defenders of Soledar, but gave no update on military situation in his nightly address on Tuesday. However, we do have statements that came from the Ukrainians saying that the fighting is still ongoing in those areas around Soledar. Russian forces trained tank, mortar, and artillery fire on Avdiivka. Ukraine's armed forces said a second focus for Russia, south of Bakhmut and not far from the city of Donetsk, held by Russian proxies, again, since 2014. That's in the separatist-held territory there. Russia's artillery fire in Ukraine has gone down dramatically from its wartime high in some places by as much as 75%, again, as things have stagnated slowly on the battlefields in eastern Ukraine. According to U.S. and Ukrainian officials, the drop in shelling is further evidence of Russia's increasingly weak position on the battlefield. Nearly a year into its invasion, officials have told reporters. The official did not give a clear or single explanation behind the striking decline in artillery fire, but again, I contribute it mostly to just kind of the stagnation that we've seen along some of those zones along the eastern frontier in Ukraine. Western officials have warned that Ukraine will not be able to take back a significant amount of territory from Russia without an increase in military capability, including tanks and armored vehicles. Again, which later in the show I will cover. They are getting quite a few of those tanks and armored vehicles, which we'll talk about later. Russian and Ukrainian forces are currently too closely matched for the Ukrainians to be able to mount a major offensive, a Western official has said on Tuesday. They said a reported Ukrainian call for 300 tanks was not an unreasonable number to create the force mass needed for them to go on the offensive. Again, we've seen statements by the Ukrainians that their plans are not just to take back some of these areas that were taken by the Russians since the launch of the full-scale invasion, but also to move into places like Donetsk, Luhansk, and possibly even Crimea, taking back some of those territories that Russia has held since 2014. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau on Tuesday said his government would purchase a U.S. U.S. air defense system to donate to Ukraine. The U.S.-built air defense system was worth $406 million Canadian dollars, a whopping $302 million U.S. dollars for those Americans in the chat. Defense Minister Anita Anand said Canada will continue to stand with Ukrainian people as they fight against Russia's illegal and unjustifiable invasion. In further news here, Ukrainian troops are set to begin training on those Patriot missile systems, which we've heard a lot about over recent weeks and months here. They've been asking for these Patriot missile systems since back in March of last year. People have been trying to get those on the ground there. They're now getting those missile systems. They're getting training in Oklahoma. As soon as next week, they will be starting training Ukrainian soldiers on the ground in the U.S., training on those systems. It says here the training program will take place at Fort Sill in Oklahoma, with the program expected to take several months. During Zelensky's visit to the U.S. in December, Joe Biden announced $1.85 billion U.S. dollars in new military assistance to Kyiv, including the delivery of a Patriot missile battery system. The U.S. is also reportedly considering sending Stryker armored combat vehicles to Ukraine. The move could be announced next week, but no final decision has been made. Again, they're not just getting fighting vehicles from the U.S., but a few other countries as well. Again, we'll talk about that further here in a few in a few moments. Russia has appointed Colonel General Alexander Lepin as chief of staff of the country's ground forces. State-owned news agency TASS reported, despite criticism from hawks over his performance in Ukraine. Again, so they're again throwing another commander here into the fray, so to speak, which seems to be a common repeated pattern here by the Russians. Is if one guy isn't doing a good job, they boot him out the door and they get a new guy in there to see if he can make some headway. The family of one of two British men missing in Ukraine have said they are very worried and concerned about his death. Chris Perry, 28, was last seen on Friday with fellow Briton Andrew Bagshot, 48, heading to the town of Soledar in the eastern Donetsk region of Ukraine. The men had been working as volunteers helping people evacuate from the front line. Again, we've seen very heavy fighting in those areas around Bakhmut and Soledar. So those are just kind of our big headline topics that I have for you on Ukraine in my lineup, so to speak. We have some more here that I'm going to start going through here now. I'll go and we'll get switched over here on the screen. Joe Blowing Wind, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Says welcome back. Well, thank you so much, Joe, for joining us tonight on this stream here, and glad to have you tuning in. We're going to get you guys over here. I believe this is where we need to be here. So here I have a report, again, coming from The Guardian. It talks about the Ukraine military denies Russian forces have captured Soledar. Ukraine's military has denied that Russian forces have encircled and captured Soledar after claims by the head of the Wagner mercenary group that the eastern city had fallen. The claims about the status of the fighting on the eastern Donbass front were made, again, by Prigozhin, as Poland announced that it planned to transfer 10 German-made Leopard 2 main battle tanks to Ukraine in a move with wide significance. Again, just more of those armored vehicles, more of those the tanks that these are indeed tanks. Again, the Bradley fighting vehicles would be more considered an armored vehicle. However, they are getting more of this armored equipment here, and every piece goes a long way, especially these German-made Leopard 2 main battle tanks. They're quite capable on the battlefield in Ukraine there. I hope we see some more heading Ukraine's way here in the coming weeks and months. Speaking on a visit to Lviv on Wednesday, the Polish president said, quote, "A company of Leopard tanks will be handed over as part of coalition building. We want it to be an international coalition," he said. So again, we're not just seeing tanks coming from Germany, but many other countries are sending armored fighting vehicles as well. For next week's report, I'm going to get kind of a full list of new equipment that is going into Ukraine, and we'll be able to kind of cover some of those things. The transfer would require permission from Germany, which Kyiv has been pressing separately to supply Leopard 2s, perhaps suggesting a softening of Germany's stance on the transfer of main battle tanks after recent contracts between Warsaw and Berlin. However, a German government spokesperson said it was not aware of any requests from allies to send the tanks to Ukraine. Commenting on the fighting in Soledar, the spokesperson for the eastern group of Ukrainian armed forces said, quote, "Russians say that it is under their control. It is not true," he says in that quote there. The Russian capture of Soledar and the city's salt mines would have symbolic military and commercial value for Moscow. Of course, those salt mines are really what they're focusing on there. They want to get control of that area. But the situation in and around Soledar appeared fluid, and neither claim could be independently verified at this time. Prigozhin had released a photo showing him with a group of his fighters and a tank, which he said was taken in one of the tunnels of a salt mine in the southwest of Soledar. Highly doubt that he would actually be there in Soledar. I don't think that is true. I'm not saying I'm not saying for sure that it is, but I doubt he would be that close to the front line at this time. Again, I could be wrong on that. He also said that only units of his paramilitary company, many of them convicts who had been offered a pardon if they fought for him, had been involved in the fighting for the city. So basically what he's saying there is basically only units of his paramilitary group and not actual Russian military were the ones responsible. He's basically taking full credit for the capture of Soledar and those salt mines. Again, we'll have to see how that pans out here. Footage posted from Soledar by a Ukrainian soldier from a drone unit identified by the call sign Maigar at 10 a.m. on Wednesday suggested heavy clashes were continuing, but Ukrainian forces were still holding positions. This is the sound of Soledar, he said, to the background noise of constant artillery strikes. Local fights are happening from time to time, and artillery is working on both sides. We got a little update video here from Soledar, if I can get that on screen for you.
Саме так, зараз звучить Солідар. Я хочу вас запевнити, що ситуація абсолютно контрольована. Станом на скільки годин? Скільки годин, Сантік?
Зараз скажемо. 10 годин.
10 година
11:01.
ранку. Ситуація з вечора для підарів не покращилася. Всі рубежі збережені і під надійним контролем ЗСУ. Відбуваються час від часу локальні точечні бої, плюс працює з обох сторін артилерія. Птахи Мадяра роблять свою роботу. Це місцева особливість околиць Бахмуту і Солідару, виявляється. У всіх великі запаси томатного соку. Ми навіть пробували, коли морозу не було, тепліше було. Такий добрий, натуральний. Люблять його тут місцеві.
Ага.
So here you're seeing drone footage again over what is speculated to be Soledar here. And we're kind of just watching as this drone kind of pans over the area here. I'm pretty sure they're target spotting here. Looking for enemy units or activity, most likely. So here they've spotted some Russian troops, I believe.
Підорня вештає вулицями. 11 січня. Трошки за 10-ту ранку.
Єбать. Ляс какой. Перепрошую.
Раз, два, три, чотири, п'ять, 6. Дивимось, куди йдуть. 7, 8, 9, йоптуй, 10, а ну лівіше. О, хробачня, бачите, як в околицях Солідара. Раз, два, три, 4.
So again, this is footage coming from what he's saying is the outskirts of Soledar. He's observing what looks to be a pretty sizable unit here of Russian soldiers.
Ви самі свідки, яким чином ворожі групи ворожих військ пересуваються від хати до хати, займаючи певні позиції, закріпляючись. Це така типова манера проходів по місту. Десятками, в даному випадку 13 їх попереду десятками і дрібніше.
Спинилися в цьому будиночку, більше немає дорог.
Але ми вже зафіксували, де вони зайшли. Зараз будемо здійснювати певні мероприємства. Да, Сант?
Так. Залюбки.
Русні?
Зда.
Зда. Пизда русні.
А ти ж на Солідарі південь.
Єдине, з чим хочу до вас звернутися, не ведіться на ті всі...
So again, here he's saying don't buy all the incorrect claims spread by bot farms. Again, that could directly correlate to some of these claims by the Wagner group saying that they've taken Soledar. Of course, we're seeing reports that's definitely not true.
На Солідарі вкрай сквозна з точки зору щільності вогня і боїв. Незрозуміло, що.
So again, basically, long story short here,
Жителі, котрі залишаються.
fighting is still ongoing in Soledar and around Bakhmut, of course.
Очевидно, їх тут є достатньо.
Next up here, actually that one is saved for, that's towards the end of the show. There we go. Ukraine war pushes civilian casualties from explosive weapons to 4-year high. Civilian casualties from the use of explosive weapons soared by 83% last year because of the war in Ukraine, according to a monitoring organization that counts the number of deaths caused by conflict and war. Again, I would like to say this and kind of try to drive this home, is that we don't have actual casualty counts for Ukraine and Russia, okay? Including civilians, not just military personnel, but I'm talking civilians as well. So things like death numbers, injury counts, stuff like that, we don't have those casualty numbers set in stone, okay, by any stretch of the imagination. And we won't have that information for probably years. I mean, I would say at least another year or so once the conflict is over. Still, you know, in areas where the Russians have moved out and the Ukrainians have taken back territory, we're still getting updates on body counts from some of those battles that went down, from some of the civilian injuries that occurred in those places. It takes weeks and months for them to clear rubble. There's bodies that have been buried. There's bodies that have been blown up, and pieces of them have been scattered all around. And it takes time for them to get accurate counts for not just injuries but deaths and casualties in general. So again, this article here is saying that civilian casualties from the use of explosive weapons have soared by 83%. Last year they soared 83%. Now, I guarantee we're going to see a large increase in those numbers, even 6 months to a year down the road from now, when it comes to the civilian side of the casualties. And then as for military personnel, that's a totally different ballgame. The Russians 100% aren't releasing total casualty numbers, and it's kind of hard for them to as battles are ongoing. And again, as bodies are all over the place, some not found until days, weeks after battles take place. Even on the Ukrainian side, I would like to say that there is some level of uncertainty about those numbers. Right? It takes time for them to get actual concrete numbers and verify that data, and it'll be many months, if not years, before we get concrete figures as to what those numbers look like. Its figure, though, is almost certainly a significant underestimate, it says here, partially because media reports only capture the most serious incidents. The latest UN figures report 17,994 civilian casualties in Ukraine, 6,919 killed, and 11,075 injured. And again, I would say that's probably an order of magnitude less than what the actual number is, which we again won't see until the end of the war and even sometime after that. It says here, even the UN figure is considered low, as it has not been possible to record casualty numbers from places where some of the most serious fighting has taken place, most notably the city of Mariupol, destroyed in a Russian siege last spring, but also in other areas of intense fighting, including Izium and Severodonetsk. But the monitoring group's methodology has been consistently applied for over a decade, and so provides a snapshot of the level of global conflict and seriousness of its impact on non-combatants caught up in war. Explosive weapon use in towns and cities accounted for 69% of incidents recorded in 2022, but caused 94% of all reported civilian casualties, with the figure even higher in Ukraine, partly because of Russia's tactics of targeting urban areas. So again, that's kind of our main headlines for. That's our main headlines for Ukraine. We're not going to hop into our community aggregated news here. We're going to kind of go through about the past, I would say, 12 hours or so of reports coming from our intel analysts over on the Situation Room on our Discord server. Again, if you guys would like to join the Discord server, there's a link in the description below below the stream. If it's invalid, I think somebody mentioned that in the chat. I think I just updated it, so it should be working. If not, I'll have to update that in there, but you should be able to find a link either over on our channel page. You could find a link to the Discord server, or again, if that one in the description is working, that will be the one to use. Again, if anybody is mentioning me or sending me any messages, I will try to get to those after the stream is over, or maybe even towards the end during our Q&A. I might miss some of them, though, again, because I'm monitoring Twitch chat, YouTube chat, and Discord chat as well. Again, hopping over into our situation room here over on the Discord server, I'm going to get you guys about the past 10 to 12 hours of updates here from our community. Again, over there on the Discord server. First one comes from Rakasan on the Discord server here. This is a video here showing some Archer artillery systems. Sweden just confirmed that those systems will be provided to the Ukrainian army in the near future. These unique self-propelled howitzers can fire 20 by 155 millimeter shells. They're the Excalibur shells, I'm pretty sure here, in 2.5 minutes, firing one every 7.5 seconds, redeployment in less than 30 seconds. A very capable artillery system, again, self-propelled. We can take a look here. I've got a video here that I can show you guys of it firing. So again, about every 7.5 seconds, this system is capable of sending a shell downrange. So again, a very capable artillery system. Again, Sweden is sending over to the Ukrainians. Our next update here comes from, posted by Kayuka, our favorite power poster here. This is the intelligence update from the Ministry of Defense Intelligence of the UK. On January 11th, Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu announced that the head of the Russian military, Chief of the General Staff, is to take over as the commander of the special military operation in Ukraine. Gerasimov is to have 3 deputies in the role, including the previous incumbent General Sergei Servovikin. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that correct there. This is a significant development in Russian President Vladimir Putin's approach to managing the war. The deployment of the CGS as theater commander is an indicator of the increasing seriousness of the situation Russia is facing, a clear acknowledgement that the campaign is falling short of Russia's strategic goals. The movement is likely to be greeted with extreme displeasure by much of the Russian ultra-nationalist and military blogger community, who have increasingly blamed Gerasimov for the poor execution of the war. In contrast, Surovikin has been widely praised by this community for his championing of a more realistic approach. As a now deputy commander, his authority and influence is almost certainly hugely reduced. Our next post here talks a little bit about casualty numbers. Again, I like to reiterate, casualty numbers are very loose. Again, I would estimate that we're definitely over the 100,000 mark when it comes to Russian personnel casualties. However, I would like to say that this number is probably nowhere near where the real figure is. When you get to vehicles, it's a little bit more consistent. When you're talking about something like a tank, you can very easily count destroyed tanks along a roadway. When a column has been destroyed, it's a lot easier to count that equipment. Got around 3,000 tanks here, 6,000 armored personnel vehicles, around 2,000 artillery systems, 217 anti-aircraft warfare systems, 285 aircraft/helicopters, 1,862 UAV operational tactical operating systems, so those are drones, 723 cruise missiles, 17 warships and boats, 4,826 vehicles and fuel tanks, and 184 pieces of special equipment. So quite a bit of kit has been destroyed by the Ukrainians. We have a General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine update here. Let's see if I can pull this up for you guys here. Again, I have a translation over here on my screen, but it is in Ukrainian here. on the screen in front of you, but I'll go ahead and read over our translation here. It says, over the past day, units of the Defense Forces of Ukraine repelled the attacks of the occupiers in the area of Hiranivka, or Hiran Ikivka, in Kharkiv region, and as well as a few other regions there in the Luhansk and Donetsk regions. Russian occupying forces exert moral and physical pressure on the population of the temporarily occupied and occupied territories. Thus, almost 1,500 employees of the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant who refused to receive Russian passports and sign a contract with Rosatom are deprived of passes and access to the enterprise. The invaders are looking for new workers for the nuclear power plant on the territory of the Russian Federation and are preparing a housing fund for future workers through the so-called nationalization of the apartments of local residents who have left. Here is a ISW Russian offensive campaign assessment from Kayuka. This comes from the Institute of the Study of War. Again, he has some key takeaways, which he condensed down here. I'll go ahead and read those off here. Russian media reported on January 10th that Colonel General Alexander Lepin, former commander of the Central Military District and Russian forces in Kharkiv and northern Donetsk oblasts during Russia's significant losses in September 22, has been appointed Chief of Staff for the Russian ground forces. The news of Lepin's appointment is generating further schisms in the already fragmented pro-war Russian information space. Igor Girkin heavily implied that he would support the removal of the Russian President Vladimir Putin from office, suggesting that a willingness to reduce self-censorship and directly criticize Putin may be growing among some military bloggers in Russia. The Ukrainian General Staff deviated from its normal reporting pattern about Russian forces in Belarus and near Ukraine's northern border on January 10th, an indicator of possible Russian preparations for an offensive in northern Ukraine, though ISW assesses this course of action remains unlikely at this time. Ukrainian forces continued to make gains along the Savatovi-Kremina line. Russian forces conducted ground attacks across the Donetsk Oblast front line and made gains around Soledar, but have not captured the settlement despite false claims. The Kremlin continues to deny that Russian authorities are preparing for another wave of partial mobilization. Russian occupation authorities are struggling to contain an effective partisan movement in occupied territories. All right, so it looks like our sound cut out there for a second. Thank you, Kayuka, for letting me know. Seems I've got it fixed, though, here. So, again, just to reiterate here, they're mainly focusing on those areas in Donetsk, especially around Soledar and the salt mines there. Our evening report here, again, I'm just reading that off now. I'll go ahead and I'll start over on that just so you guys are fully filled in here on what's going on. Again, this is the evening report of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. The main efforts of the enemy are concentrated on attempts to completely seize the Donetsk region. It is conducting offensive operations in the Bakhmut direction. He is trying to take control of the city of Soledar and the supply routes of our units. He suffers heavy losses. The fighting continues. He says also the occupiers are conducting unsuccessful offensive actions in the Ediv direction. The enemy is trying to improve its tactical position on the Kupiansk and Novopavlovsk directions, and a few other regions there as well, Zaporizhia and Kherson. It is defending itself in those areas. In the settlements of the temporarily captured territory of the Kherson region, the Russian invaders are intensifying regime measures, checking the local population. Special attention is paid to mobile phones. So they're really cracking down there on the partisan warfare, so to speak, there from civilians on the ground in Kherson, in and around the, I would say, east of Kherson, where the Russians still kind of control some territory east of that Kherson region. The trend of overcrowding of medical facilities in temporarily occupied settlements with wounded Russian occupiers is intensifying. So, as of January 9th, 100 additional beds were deployed only in the Makiivka local hospital of the Luhansk region. According to available information, the border service of the FSB of the Russian Federation has implemented an order on January 9th of this year to ensure restrictions on the departure of citizens who are fit for military service. So again, continuing to prepare for this possible second wave of mobilization. We've heard a lot of rumors. We've seen a lot of signs. They are indeed going to be implementing another wave of mobilization in Russia, and I would say this is a precursor to that. Again, they're locking down the borders there. They want to make sure that men of military fighting age aren't going to leave and go to Georgia like what happened in the first wave of mobilization. A lot of people fled Russia in those first days and weeks of mobilization. I think the number is upward of 1 million, if not more. Don't quote me on that, but I know it's a quite considerable number of people left Russia in that first wave of mobilization. Our next post here, again, coming from Rakasan. I guess I hope I am pronouncing your names correctly here, guys. If not, please let me know. Again, this was posted by our best friend Yoru, aka Mehmet. You guys might remember him if any of you were here for our early reports back at the start of the war. Again, he posted an evening address here from Zelensky. We're going to go ahead and take a look at that now.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. Сьогодні тут, у Львові, для України прозвучали важливі новини під час саміту Люблінського трикутника, нашого спеціального формату з Польщею і Литвою. Польща ухвалила рішення по передачі Україні танків. Я дякую за це. Дякую президенту Дуді, уряду Польщі, усім нашим польським друзям. Литва передає нашій державі зенітні системи, ту зброю, якою ми потребуємо для захисту від іранських дронів, для захисту нашої енергетики. Дякую Гітаносу за цей черговий прояв незмінної принципової підтримки України, яка почала ще до 24 лютого і триватиме до нашої перемоги. Почув сьогодні цю впевненість ще раз і від Анджея, і від Гітаноса. Ми разом пройдемо шлях до відновлення безпеки України і всієї Європи, до відновлення нашої територіальної цілісності, до відновлення миру. Російська агресія має програти, і так і буде. Дуже змістовно сьогодні проговорили питання нашої інтеграції, як до Євросоюзу, так і до НАТО. Вже цього року ми маємо вийти на відчутний прогрес в європейській інтеграції. Це стосується передусім початку переговорів щодо членства. Польща і Литва однаково і всебічно готові нас підтримувати. Бачать нас повністю інтегрованими до європейських і євроатлантичних структур. І разом з іншими нашими партнерами на континенті та в Альянсі ми маємо трансформувати цю готовність, цю енергію в реальний інституційний рух, в реальні рішення. Звичайно, ми сьогодні говорили і про ситуацію на полі бою, про те, зокрема, що російська агресія вичерпається тільки тоді, коли російські амбіції не матимуть жодної іншої альтернативи, окрім програшу. Всі російські амбіції і на фронті, і в політиці, в економіці, в юридичній площині. Зараз держави-терористи і її пропагандисти намагаються зробити вигляд, нібито якась частина нашого міста Солидару майже повністю зруйнована окупантами міста, ніби це якийсь здобуток Росії. Вони будуть подавати і вже подають це своєму суспільству так, щоб підтримувати мобілізацію, щоб давати надію тим, хто за агресію. Але бої продовжуються, Донецький напрямок тримається, і ми без перерви навіть на один день робимо все, щоб посилити українську оборону. Наш потенціал зростає. Я дякую всім нашим партнерам, які допомагають у цьому. Танки західного зразка – це робота всієї нашої антивоєнної коаліції. І це новий рівень нашого потенціалу. Сьогодні ж у Львові провів нараду щодо безпекової ситуації в наших західних областях та на нашому державному кордоні. Враховуємо всі загрози, посилюємо всі елементи безпеки наших регіонів. Слава усім, хто воює за Україну. Я дякую всім, хто працює на нашу перемогу. Дякую усім, хто допомагає нам у відновленні безпеки. Слава Україні!
All right, so that was a address there, the evening address from Zelensky. Thank you so much, Zelensky, for that, because I needed a moment there to grab another water. I was about to die. Okay, so again, our next post here coming from the Kyiv Independent, posted by Kayuka earlier this evening. It says Belarus may have created Wagner-like private military company. Belarus may have created a government-backed private military company similar to Russia's infamous mercenary Wagner Group. According to Valery, again, this is going to be a little bit of a stretch here for me to pronounce this one. Sakahashakik. Again, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that 100% correctly. Apologies. Defense and security representative of the leader of Belarus opposition in exile, called Garad Service, the security service company, has significantly increased the number of employees and is preparing to participate in military operations, said in a comment to Deutsche Welle. I believe that's I'm pretty sure that's a news outfit, if I'm not mistaken. According to Sakahashik, Guard Service, I think it's called. Staff has been training for several months at several Belarusian training grounds. Quote, I know that officers of the 5th Special Forces Brigade based in Belarusian Minsk Oblast train Guard Service employees at their training ground, he said. In addition, the company has taken over the base of former Dynamo Special Training Center, where intense actions are also taking place. According to Sakahashik, currently the company may have more than 1,000 mercenaries. Again, that's nowhere near the numbers that outfit like Wagner have. They have quite a few more personnel on the ground in Ukraine at this time. I believe they have over 1,000, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have exact numbers, but that is quite a small number compared to what you would see with something like Wagner. Deutsche Welle also reported citing an unnamed official that Guard Service workers could be used in sabotage and reconnaissance groups and also for assault operations. I would really like to get a proper pronunciation on that. Guard Service. Is that actually how you pronounce it? Guard Service? I have my notes here, and my notes actually say it's pronounced like that. So I'm not sure, but that has to be a play on words. It's a private military security service, and they're calling it Guard Service. I have to be pronouncing something wrong here. Anyway, Wagner Group, again, that private military formation run by Prigozhin, a close confidant of Putin, a shadowy organization composed of contractors who are paid to fight wars outside of the official military. Wagner is infamous for its brutal tactics and has been linked to evidence of war crimes and conflicts around the globe. They say that Russian President Vladimir Putin has invested a lot in this new private military group, Guard Service, and is creating a Belarusian equivalent of the Wagner Group from it. Russia deployed the mercenaries to eastern Ukraine, again speaking to the Wagner Group, to help make up for its own military's heavy losses. The UK Defense Ministry reported in late March. They are currently involved in offensive operations in Donetsk Oblast in the east of Ukraine. Our next post here comes from, Kayuka. This is from Radio Free Europe, also known as Radio Liberty. Talks a little bit about the Solidar assault mines. Some pictures here from inside those mines here shows just how massive they are. Also, I find this extremely interesting, just the way that they're boring out this material here. Kind of the patterns it's creating on these massive caverns inside this, or shafts, caverns. I don't know if you would consider this a shaft. I've seen many mine shafts, and this looks like more like a cavern, or I forgot that there's probably a mining term for that. This looks more like an adit or a shaft here, but absolutely massive. These mines are here. But again, this is potentially a huge commercial resource for Russia. This is why they want to move in and take these salt mines, take over Soledar near Bakhmut for these salt mines. Matt and Chad, he says Minecraft. Yeah, the way they're taking those blocks out there it was almost reminiscent of a game like Minecraft. Yeah, in simple cubes. There's a stair. It looks like a staircase actually, or a ladder system heading up there. Very interesting. See some of the machinery they're using for boring out these salt mines here. Some of the equipment they're using to conveyor that salt out of the mine. Again, more blocks of this salt material here. Again, very interesting. But this is again the main reason why they want Soledar and why they want that mine is because of all the salt. It's a huge commercial resource potentially for the Russians. Another post here coming from Ukraine. The Forum. Invaders building a new airbase at the abandoned airfield in Berdyansk. Talks about Russian occupation forces after escaping from the Chepelinka airfield in the Kherson region have begun to build a new airbase at the abandoned airfield in Berdyansk, Zaporizhia region. After the liberation of Kherson, the Russian army also left Chepelinka airfield, which was an important military stronghold and the largest airbase on the left bank of the Kherson region. However, in late November, the Russians started the construction of a new airbase at the abandoned airfield in Berdyansk. According to the report, recent Planet satellite imagery show that helicopters are stationed at the airport, trenches are being dug, camouflage tarps are being installed, and heavy equipment is building shelters for vehicles. We can go ahead. We have a little bit of a satellite image here. We can show you if it'll let me. It's not letting me. Yeah, I guess that's the best we're going to get there for the image. I can zoom in a little bit here for you, but just showing kind of a little bit of what's going on the ground there. You got military trucks. Yeah, they're showing some of the other equipment here. Helicopters, a protective ditch surrounding the airfield for again if there's any Ukrainian movements to take the airfield. Again, that ditch would probably be a defensive line. I would expect. Camouflage tarps here, possible pipeline under construction. Again, you need fuel, maybe even water. That could be what that pipeline's for. Again, it's hard to tell, but it looks like they are constructing that airfield there. Again, that is near Berdyansk. Our next post here, again, coming from the Walter Report, posted by Kayuka. This is a video that's been I've seen quite a few of these videos from Marinka in Donetsk, just how destroyed, or as they say here, the video provides a glimpse into the sheer scale of destruction. It's insane, the amount of destruction that has occurred in some of these eastern Ukrainian towns, villages, and cities. Let's take a look. So a user in the live chat, Ryan, he just says, taking Soledar serves him in more ways than Salt. This will affect Bakhmut as well, won't it? Yes, of course. So again, I should reiterate that. It's not just the salt mines they're looking to take Soledar for. It's also because it'll help them encircle Ukrainian troops, help them get the kind of a flanking maneuver, so to speak, on those Ukrainian troops, and it will, in the long run, possibly help them take Bakhmut. However, I mean, the Ukrainian forces are putting up such a heavy fight in defense of those regions around Bakhmut. It's hard to tell if the Russians are going to be able to make any more significant progress, but again, only time will tell. Russia has kind of switched to a new kind of a method of just throwing bodies at the problem. That's basically what they're doing. Is just sheer manpower, seeing how many soldiers they can throw into the meat grinder before the problem is solved. Again, for those that are just tuning in, we're taking a look at footage here. Again, it came from Mariinka of just some of the sheer destruction in that city. And you got to think, it's not just Mariinka; it's many villages, towns, and cities that look this same way. Me personally, I look at this footage and it reminds me of something you'd see in a video game more than a real life war zone. This is like this level of destruction is to par with scenes from World War II and World War One. I would say more so World War II, the invasion of Europe. But I mean, even more so. I think this is. I mean, just the way that everything is just completely just shredded. It's not even like you don't just have destroyed building. I mean, like if you look here on screen, the trees themselves are literally shredded to pieces, and everything else has been turned into basically a mulch. While on the topic of destruction, Kayuka said he just posted some satellite imagery into the situation room that shows some before and afters of some of this destruction. So we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at those now. Thank you so much, Kayuka, for providing these for us. So again, before August 1st is on the left. After January 10th, 2023 is on the right. So before and after here, again, showing the magnitude of ongoing fighting between Russian and Ukrainian forces. Shown here is the town of Soledar. So this is where fighting currently is at its heaviest here and near the Bakhmut region here. The apartment buildings that have been completely destroyed. Let's take a look at these full screens. So you could see, buildings still intact. And you go to the next image here, and you could see just it's almost like the surface of the moon. Just everything completely littered with mortar impact from mortar, artillery, missiles, and everything else the Russians and Ukrainians can throw at each other. You see here the buildings absolutely destroyed. I mean, there's almost nothing left but the foundations that they sit on, some frames, but everything has been blown out. Roofs have been blown out. Again, just look, if you look closely here, just the amount of, I could really bring this up full screen, just the amount of craters, impact craters, is absolutely insane. It literally looks like, if you were to squint, it almost looks like the surface of the moon. Like if you were to take this section here in the top right, it would almost look like you had taken a picture of the surface of the moon, and that's what you were looking at. Some pretty intense imagery here, again, showing the destruction. Again, here's another really great example of what I was just talking about. Again, this is from January 7th, 2023. Reveals thousands of bomb craters in fields and along roads in and around the town of Bakhmut. Let's go ahead and take a look at this closer up. So you can see literally how many artillery strikes, mortar strikes. It's saturated, completely saturated this entire area. Just an insane visual representation of the destruction that is happening in this part of Ukraine, not just in that part of, I mean, all over Ukraine has been absolutely devastated by attacks from the Russian forces over the past since the start of the full scale invasion. And I would argue even before that, way back to 2014. I mean, since the fighting began back in 2014, they've just been constantly inflicting destruction, death and destruction amongst onto the Ukrainian people. So again, I have one last post here of community aggregated news here tonight. Actually, I have two. We have two more that we'll get to here. First one coming from the MOD of Russia, Ministry of Defense of Russia, from Telegram here. Says Russian Defense Ministry report on the progress of the special military operation in Ukraine. Again, try to take everything you read here with a grain of salt. No pun intended. The Russian Federation Armed Forces continue the special military operation in the Kupiansk direction. Artillery and Army aviation have engaged in the concentrations of manpower of the 92nd Mechanized Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine and the 103rd Territorial Defense Brigade close to Sinivkovka and the Kiselovka, Kharkiv region, as well as the Novoselahovsky, Lugansk People's Republic, neutralizing over 30 Ukrainian servicemen and 2 mortar vehicles. The AFU have suffered up to 90 Ukrainian servicemen killed and wounded, as well as 2 armored combat vehicles and 3 vehicles eliminated during the day. Again, try to take these numbers with a grain of salt. In Donetsk direction, Russian troops have liberated Podgorodony. Again, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that 100% correctly. My apologies for that. During a successful offensive, basically they're claiming here a few successes. Airborne troops have blocked Solidar from the northern and southern parts of the city. The Russian aerospace forces strike at enemy strongholds. Assault squads are fighting in the city at this time. Up to 80 Ukrainian servicemen, 1 tank, 3 armored fighting vehicles, and 2 motor vehicles were destroyed as a result of the shelling of units of 61st AFU Mechanized and the 17th Tank Brigades. In South Donetsk direction, up to 25 Ukrainian servicemen, an infantry fighting vehicle, and 2 motor vehicles have been annihilated by a complex fire attack near Nikoliski. Again, and it goes on, another one here, operational, tactical, and Army aviation missile troops and artillery have neutralized a command and observation post of a battalion of the 57th AFU Motorized Infantry Brigade close to Atramovsk. Again, everything that I just read there, take with a grain of salt, as a lot of those Russian MOD again, Ministry of Defense posts are a little bit on the loose side when it comes to the facts. Next up here, our last post here, we have a post coming from the New York Times. I can't read the whole thing for you, but I'll read the headline here and the caption underneath. Basically, Russia posts a $47 billion budget deficit for 2022. It's second highest in the post-Soviet era. The budget gap reached 3.3 trillion rubles, or 2.3% of the size of the Russian economy, according to the country's finance minister. So the Russians are... I would say they aren't doing the best economically. That could be one way to put it. So closing out of some of these other posts here that we had up. There's Cayuca there. Okay, so we'll get back over to here. All right, so next we're going to jump in. We just went through our community aggregated news for the Ukraine war for the evening. I'm now going to hop into some open source intelligence resources here, and we're going to take a look at some of those, kind of get a little bit better of an understanding of what's going on the ground. First things first, our favorite tool here, the Universal Awareness Map. We're going to take a look at some of the posts that have come out for about the past 12 or so hours here from live Universal Awareness Map. We'll take a look here first at just kind of, you can see our contact line in the east here on screen. 12 hours ago here, Security Service of Ukraine conducts security operation at the Perchivsk district of Kyiv. So again, not sure the details of that yet. I don't have any further details to give besides that headline there. But they have conducted a security operation. Maybe mitigated saboteurs. Again, if somebody else has further information on this, probably just is being posted as this report is going up. I wouldn't uh, I wouldn't put it past them again because this information, we get these posts here and then it's usually 12 hours later we have reports flooding coming in. So basically, a security operation has been conducted in that district of Kyiv. At this moment, though, that's about all of the details I have for that. 12 hours ago, President of Ukraine, Zelensky, from the first days of the full-scale invasion, we felt support of our fraternal peoples of Poland and Lithuania. I'm grateful to Anne Andrzej Duda and Gitanas Nasaida for their visit. Thank you for helping our people. Again, you can see an image there on screen from that visit. I believe that was in Kyiv, in Ukraine's capital. Or Lviv. They came to Lviv to visit. Okay. 12 hours ago, presidents of Lithuania and Poland pay an unexpected visit to Lviv. Again, you can see a picture there of their visit there, of their handshake. Again, good to see that they are continuing to have talks, and these leaders are going into Ukraine to have talks with Zelensky. 11 hours ago, Chief of the General Staff Valery Geremisev has been appointed commander of the Joint Group of Russian Forces of Operation of Ukraine. Russian Ministry of Defense reports, again as reported earlier in our stream. 5 hours ago, a blackout in the Severny region of Belgorod after suspected drone hit power line. Again, this is in Russian territory, just to be clear here. We have an image on screen of what is believed to be that downed drone near a power line. It downed a power line from what we've read here. We have a video as well from that. I can go ahead and show you. I believe I have to open up our source here on Telegram. Yeah, it's actually not showing me the video, so I might have to be logged in for that. But we do have some images there of that downed drone. 4 hours ago, Russian four-post RU UAV armed with KB-20S hit a power line near Belgorod and crashed. So, again, I believe this is sent by the Ukrainians. It says it's a Russian UAV. So that's interesting there. Again, we have another image, a few images here actually on screen of that downed drone that destroyed that power line. So, scrolling in on, where's Bakhmut here? So here is Bakhmut. About 17 hours ago at the Bakhmut direction, Russian army shelled Yakovlivka and quite a few other villages and areas in and around Bakhmut. Listed here is Soledar, amongst others. You can see quite a bit of activities happen in the past 24 hours along this contact line. We're going to go ahead and switch over to another map because we're no longer just focusing on live universal awareness map, but I have a few other maps that we will get into as well when we do these Ukraine updates. First of which is our deep state map. If I can get that up on screen here. So here on screen, I've really come to like this map because it shows a couple things that are really, really useful. This was last updated January 10th. So reason this map is pretty significant is it shows Russian force movements here. It also shows Ukrainian movements when they go on counteroffensives. But most importantly here is it shows us where the Russian forces are moving. It also lists things like unit names, etc. And then, of course, my favorite addition is the little. I don't know if you guys can see this. It's pretty small, but they have little pigs in army helmets for the Russian forces. So that's an interesting touch there. Anyway. Again, you can see Wagner PMC operating in this area. I would say this is northeast of Bakhmut. They're backed up by the 10th Artillery Brigade of the Luhansk People's Republic. You can see the directions of movement here, directions of attack on Bakhmut. Of course, Soledar here to the north of Bakhmut. You can see where they are closing in on Ukrainian troops in that area. Now, you can see here they're flanking them from the north and the south, as well as moving in from the east, and they're trying to conduct kind of a pincer movement here from around from their 6 o'clock here to the west. If they're able to pinch off the Ukrainian forces here, they will take Soledar. Again, though, fighting is ongoing in Soledar at this hour. I like to reiterate that again amongst reports that the Russians have, not just the Russians, but I should say more specifically the Wagner PMCs have taken Soledar. That's not true. There is still fighting occurring at this hour in those areas. Moving south down the contact line, you can see a couple other areas where they're trying to move around the Ukrainian forces here at Andriivka. You can see they're kind of pushing out to the to a western direction here and up to the north. If they can move around behind Bakhmut, they may be able to pinch off some of these Ukrainian pockets of Ukrainian forces here as they move north. Again, the Ukrainian forces have done a pretty good job at locking down this contact line here, and it has again stagnated for the most part over the past few weeks. But the Russians are starting to make a lot of movements here around Bakhmut in these areas where you see on the map here where they're trying to make these I don't know if you call that a lateral move here, out to the west and up to the north, and then over here you got them moving on Soledar here, trying to surround those Ukrainian forces. Moving down further, again, we could take a look at some of their other movements along the conflict line here. Coming down to the south more towards Donetsk here, Makivka. Again, they're really kind of pushing, trying to continue to push up in a northwesterly direction here near Pisky. We've heard some news from that town over the past few weeks here. A lot of fighting in this area as well. In fact, actually, one map I'll jump to now that I should have started with is our heat map. So we have another map here I'll bring up on screen. This is our heat map here. So what you're seeing here on screen, again, is every incident, every attack, every report, everything that has happened in the war since the start. You can see the concentrations of fighting and activity. Again, this was all Kyiv back in the early days of the full-scale invasion. And then again, here's our eastern down to southern fronts here. I'll go ahead. We'll switch it over to, we have just from the 1st till the 13th. So actually, I'll back that up here. So from the 1st till today, actually, wait here. 1st until, the 11th. Okay, so you can see here, this is a really good tool to analyze where the fighting is happening the most in and around the Eastern Front. You can see Bakhmut, of course. These here are strikes on Kramatorsk, bombardments on a lot of these places here. This is a bombardment there. Does it also show Belgorod? It doesn't actually show those yet. So these are bombardments by the Ukrainians into separatist-held territory, and then these are bombardments from the Russian forces onto Ukrainian-held territory. And so if you go through here and you look towards Bakhmut, you can see that's where I would say the heaviest concentrations of fighting have happened in the past 10 days, or along Bakhmut, and then down near Donetsk here as well. Switching back over to our battle map there, we'll continue on taking a look at some of those forced troop movements there. You can see a lot of this is Russian military. So you have, the 33 Guards Motorized Rifle Regiment, 255th Guards Motorized Rifle Regiment there, Rifle Regiment, Artillery Brigades. A lot of this is all Russian military. 20th Motorized Rifle Division is hanging out over here in Donetsk. 1st Army Corps, so the DPR is there along with them. 150 Motorized Rifle Division. The guys on the front line here, 2nd Battalion of the Territorial Defense of the DPR. You got mostly DPR guys. 1st Separate Motorized Rifle Slovyansk Brigade. Again, a lot of these guys are DPR forces. You have the 9th Separate Regiment of Marines along there with them. So these are the attacking forces here on the Russian side of things. Again, we don't show Ukrainian force troop movements. We're mainly just showing the Russian forces, again, as they are the invading force. We're showing kind of the direction they're taking into the country here. If you move back up north, though, you get more Wagner. Where was that group here? Here we go. A more Wagner group activity again, especially where like the hottest areas are. So in this case, again, Soldar, Bakhmut. That's where we're seeing the Wagner group really doing most of their fighting in those areas. You don't see them spread out too much more in other parts of the front here of the eastern Ukrainian frontier. You do see small pockets of them moving out to do things like sabotage missions, reconnaissance, and stuff like that. But for the most part, those forces, those convicts we've heard a lot about in the news, those guys are up by Soledar at this time, trying to focus their attention to some of those areas. Again, heading back down here towards the north more, Pisky, Adivka, this area here, I would say, is seeing the second most fighting, I would say, next to Bakhmut. Again, pretty active in that area around Donetsk, and then up here again towards Luhansk, Lysychansk, Bakhmut. Rybezin, up here towards to the north, you do see quite a bit of activity. Again, a lot of Russian military up here. Some LPR forces mixed in with these guys as well, but it's mostly Russian forces at this time. Again, the first guys they send in are the separatist forces, are those separatist conscripts. Talked about that a lot on the show since the start of the full-scale invasion. It continues to be true today. Again, moving to the south here, down to Zaporizhia, there's still you have quite a bit of activity occurring down here. We have a lot of quite a large Russian troop presence in this area. The Ukrainians, though, have locked everything down west of the river here in Kherson. Of course, they pushed them out months ago out of Kherson, but the Russian forces have basically stagnated here along the Dnieper, and they're holding tight along the Dnieper there on both sides, on the Russian side and the Ukrainian side. And it's, as I said, kind of stagnated, and they haven't really been able to budge on either side. So, if the Ukrainians are going to launch a counteroffensive in the spring or summer, and if they are, again, what has been speculated is that they want to try to take Crimea, and they want to try to move into Crimea. I've heard a lot of military analysts say that we could see Ukraine moving into Crimea by late summer of this year. If they're going to do that, they need to really push through these Russian forces here, which are dug in. They are really dug in now on the east bank of the Dnieper. The Russian forces, they realize they're not going to be able to push too much further west until they get their ducks in a row, so to speak, up here in Bakhmut, Soledar, Donetsk, Luhansk. They need to get that stuff taken care of first before they can focus on the south of the country. So they're kind of like, all right, we got what we could. Let's hold on to it. That's kind of what they're doing down here in the south of the country. Moving on, I have another map here, which shows a little bit better illustration of the Russian force movements. So up here in Bakhmut, again, you can see this is Bakhmut, and then to the north is Soledar. And along this here, you can see this black line represents our contact line, our front line. And one reason I really like this map is because of the so these longer arrows here are not just illustrating the movements in which Russian forces moved into these areas, but it's also showing their mostly used supply routes, reinforcement routes, etc. So where they're bringing in supplies from, where they're bringing in forces from, it's a pretty accurate depiction of some of the ways, some of the roadways they're using to move forces in, and again, resupply their troops on the front line here. You can also see here along the line is reports of where there's been bombardments, where there has been activity over the past few days here. Up here, you can see the blue arrows representing Ukrainian movements. Okay, so those are Ukrainian counterattack movements, which we're seeing here on the map. We also see, again, most of these blue lines are representing more so their counterattack movements and not supply line movements. However, on the Russian side of things, if you notice, like along these roadways, these are actually like the 0504. They're bringing a lot of equipment in on. A lot of these roadways you're seeing here is where they're bringing in troops, where they're bringing in supplies and other equipment into the combat theater here. Again, moving down towards Donetsk, you can see kind of something similar here. You don't see too many blue arrows here, again, because the Ukrainians aren't really pushing any counteroffensives there. But again, if you go up to the north, I mean, you could see all of the territory that Ukraine has taken back. All of these arrows represent all of Kharkiv that they've taken back in recent months. They've done an excellent job pushing the Russian forces back in the north. Heading back to our deep state map here, I could show you, we also have reports here from Moldova. Again, earlier in the war, we were always talking about Moldova, especially when they were pushing, when they were really hard pushing east towards Odessa here earlier in the war, when they were, getting up into Mykolaiv. There was the real possibility they were going to try to move completely across to Odessa, cut off that southern coast, and maybe even link up with Russian forces in Moldova. Or I shouldn't say Moldova, I should say Transnistria, the Moldovan breakaway region here, primarily Russian-controlled breakaway region here of Moldova. So again, that might be something the Russians, if they end up making any progress later in the war, they might look at doing, but it's most likely not going to happen. The Ukrainians have locked down this area in the south very well. Kherson, again, totally locked down by the Ukrainians now. They're dug in there. They're not going to let the Russians move back over the Dnieper. Again, possible if the Russians are able to turn things around in Bakhmut. If they're able to turn things around here on the Eastern Front, they might be able to divert some forces down there to the south, maybe make some things happen. It's not looking very likely. And then on the Ukrainian side of things, if they're able to push across, they might be able to break those Russian lines there and maybe move further south, possible. We've heard reports today that, and I'll get into this a little bit further when I talk about the naval side of things here shortly. But we've seen reports just today that there's been some naval activity by the Russians here down in Crimea, submarines and ships leaving some ports down here, possibly signs of some activity maybe in the south. Again, it's hard to tell, and again, we'll have to wait and see how that develops. Another map we have here on screen here. This shows some of the activities, some of the events, I should say, that have happened here in and around Bakhmut. We'll concentrate mainly on Soledar here for this evening. Again, we have Ukrainian fighting in Soledar. Go ahead and take a look at this here. I believe we have a video to show you guys here, so we'll get to that.
Понасыпай!
So here you're seeing, again, a Ukrainian POV. It's his first-person view of an intense house-to-house combat in Soledar. Again, earlier we watched that video with those Ukrainian soldiers, and they were looking at those from a drone. They were looking at those Russian soldiers that were moving house to house in Soledar. This is basically a first-person view of that house-to-house combat that is occurring in that town of Soledar. Let's take a look.
Понасыпай!
So again, that was some pretty intense footage there of those of that house-to-house combat there in Soledar. Another event here on the map. We have a flag flying over that salt mine in Soledar. Again, this is a Ukrainian flag still flying at that Soledar mine. This was posted about 4 days ago. So in the past few days here, the Ukrainians still held that mine. Again, possibly that it could have changed by now. We don't have concrete information on that. We most likely will by the next report of what happened here in Soledar. Here's another video of the Soledar front today. Again, showing some combat. Again, from the 10th of January is when that is from, so pretty recent. Here's some artillery fire on Soledar. Take a look at that. A Ukrainian soldier fighting in the direction of Bakhmut Soledar shared very accurate. Yes, you read that correctly. Russian artillery strikes on a building, possibly a former Ukrainian position. Let's take a look.
Твари точно б'ють, блядь. Тупо розбивали. Підараси нахуй. Навели, да. Та понятно, туди не тікати, ти що там. Там де розбирають, пане. Ти що? Навелись, нахуй.
So something to note here, you can hear the outgoing and the impact all in one video. That's pretty impressive.
Там де розбирають, пане. Ти що? Навелись, нахуй. Подожди, тут кино. Подожди 5 секунд, тут кино. Ну і що, кіно дивиться. Диви луплять, да? Єжу.
Сколько ебашит.
Да не, о, так, да? Стой.
Чё я себе...
Диви, не можуть зняти. Давай.
Again, so that's some footage of some artillery striking a position in Ukraine's Soledar. We could see a video here of a tank, Ukrainian tank, engaging Russian positions in Soledar here. This video has been passed around quite a bit the past few days. Go ahead and mute that audio there. As you can see here, it's this is a Ukrainian tank firing on a kind of warehouse, a building that was housing a bunch of Russian forces are firing on this tank from this house. It's not house, building. I'm pretty sure it was reported as a warehouse, but the Ukrainian tank then proceeds to fire back. When you first see the video, I believe this was an armored personnel carrier. I'm pretty sure. That was then kind of retreating from the position, and then the tank comes up, takes care of the Russian forces that are there, and then moves on. Kayuka actually says that building is indeed part of the salt mine complex. So I believe it was a warehouse, if I'm not mistaken. That's what I heard anyway. But again, this is apparently part of the salt mine complex in Soledar. Again, actually, it's right up by the salt mine site. I mean, this was posted here. Here's the salt mine on the map. So yeah, very possible there. Here we have fighting in the salt mines. Let's take a look at that. This is soldiers of the 46th Airborne Brigade, supported by the Wolfhound MRAP, engaging Russian troops near the salt mine in Soledar. Let's take a look.
Генерал, там наші, туди не стріляйте, там наші. Танчик працює. Чув? Я чую, вони говорять. Ну, вони говорять, каже, давай башню лівіше.
Галина на зв'язку.
So you can hear those guns absolutely getting the work done there, supported by the Wolfhound MRAP, again, engaging Russian troops there near that salt mine in Soledar. Kayuka said there's also an entrance down in this area here. There's multiple entrances in this area for that salt mine. Here's a video to wrap this up here. Here's a video of a Ukrainian BTR-3 firing on Russian positions. Let's take a look. I really want to know what this is here hanging down. I don't know if that's an air freshener or what I'm looking at there, but I like it. So those Ukrainians absolutely getting the work done here. Sending rounds downrange on those Russian positions. So that about sums up the battle maps that I have for you today. Kind of just showing and updating you on kind of what's been going on in and around this territory here. I have some other open source tools that we'll look at here in a second, but first I'd like to talk about some of the situation here with Belarus. So over recent weeks, there's been a few signs of Belarus preparing to get involved in the conflict. I know I've been saying that since back when the full-scale invasion started back in February. I probably sound like a broken record. There was many points in the war that we thought Belarus was going to get involved. They continue to do so, mostly as a ploy to, again, kind of as a troop holding. A ploy for troop holding. So basically what that means is as long as there's a possibility of Belarus invading from the north, Ukraine has to keep troops positioned in the north of the country. Otherwise, if they moved all their forces down here to the east, if Russia decided to move down from the north again, they'd be caught off guard. So the Ukrainians have to keep forces here along the northern border with Belarus. Now, there's been a couple developments over the past few days to a few weeks here. There's been reports of possible mobilization within Belarus. So those are Belarusian citizens being mobilized there. Men of fighting age, of course, reservists, etc., being mobilized within Belarus. There's also been signs of troop buildup, readiness level increases, etc., along some of these areas in Belarus here, along this border, that shows that there is a possibility, maybe, of them stepping over the border from the north and moving down from the north, maybe possibly on Kyiv again. We could see maybe that happen sometime either later this winter or in the summertime. I don't think they would do it during the spring because of just when the thaw occurs, basically it turns to soup. The ground turns to soup in this area of Ukraine around that time. So I don't see them doing any kind of spring offensive down from the north. They could very well launch one late winter when the ground is still hard, or possibly late next summer. They could do that in a full capacity, so basically with the intent to fully move down to Kyiv, or they could do that in a capacity basically just to draw forces away from the east, so they can then ramp up attacks. So that the Russian forces can, maybe have a greater chance of taking some of these areas in the east. That's possible. We could also see those forces basically just be shifted down through Russia down to the east, so they wouldn't even move in from the north. They would basically rotate from Belarus down into eastern Ukraine, Donetsk, Luhansk, and possibly assist those Russian forces in the east of the country. We could possibly see something like that as well. Again, only time will tell if the Belarusians do actually get involved. However, we have seen some increasingly alarming signs over the past few weeks that might be a possibility. So again, that about wraps up the battle maps that I have for you today. I was just kind of showing you some of those those troop movements here. In our Q&A, if you guys have any questions, and I might hop back into these to kind of point some things out. But for now, we're going to hop into a few other resources here. Again, coming back to our heat map, I would just like to just kind of reiterate a few things about just kind of where the activity has been concentrated the most. This heat map is an extremely valuable resource, I think, showing just, so this was Kharkiv. This was the battle for Kharkiv. This was the battle for Kyiv here in the middle of the screen. This is the battle of Kyiv. Over here, this was the battle of Kharkiv. And then you can see the ongoing battles in Luhansk and Donetsk regions here on screen. And of course, Mariupol. You can see the battle that occurred in Mariupol here. And then, of course, the battles for Kherson, the Mykolaiv, in Zaporizhia as well. Sorry, up here. This is Zaporizhia region here. So you can see the battles that have occurred since the beginning of the war. These dots you see around are all of the secondary strikes that have occurred, bombardments, so to speak, that have occurred, not just within Ukraine, but on Russian-held territory as well as Russian territory proper, meaning on actual Russian land and on actual Belarusian land. You can see events here in Kaliningrad as well. And then I believe they had, I thought they had, oh yeah, so here's the incidents that occurred in Poland as well. So every single incident is listed on this map, this heat map here. It's an absolutely valuable resource here for kind of getting a good visual of just kind of full extent of this war and where things are most concentrated, where activity is most concentrated. For all of my naval guys, we'll switch over and take a look at the situation in the maritime sector here for Ukraine. We still have commercial traffic moving freely throughout the southern portion of the Black Sea here. Again, nothing along the southern coast of Ukraine for the most part. Commercial vessels have been avoiding this area here to the west of Crimea and to the south of Odessa. This area is not only mined, but again, vessels that travel to these areas are at risk of attack from Russian forces. Again, you can see commercial traffic, though, still moving freely from Russian territory, from the Kerch Strait as well, through the Black Sea freely. We also saw for a while there those grain shipments moving through the Black Sea as well. Switching over to our global warships map, you can see a few here. We have again on the map here some Russian vessels. Here on the map here again over in the Kerch Strait. It doesn't show all of the Russian vessels in the Black Sea, but it does show a few. Again, so they still have a presence here around Crimea, of course. Again, we have radar here. That's Taiwan. I'll move back over to Ukraine here before we get into the Taiwan stuff. Again, you could see more posts here showing some of these vessels. Again, some of these are commercial vessels. Some of these are military vessels on this map. We have a couple different maps. Again, reports from the past 48 hours of possibility of movement in the Black Sea by some of those Russian naval vessels, primarily submarines and some attack vessels as well, surface attack vessels. Again, not sure as to the specifics for those, as for type, etc. But we have heard reports that they are moving some assets around here in the Black Sea. So we're gonna have to continue to keep an eye on that and see how that develops. Speaking back to the mud issue, Kayuka, thank you again for sending this over. Sent over something I'll just show on screen really quick. I was talking about the mud issue here in the spring in Ukraine. So again, it's a soup. It's an absolute soup in the springtime. And this video really well illustrates that well. Let's take a look. So this is what it's like for a armored tracked vehicle to move around on the ground in Ukraine in the springtime. Literally a soup, a quagmire of mud and water and all sorts of bad news for any armored vehicle, tank, etc., that wants to move freely across Ukrainian territory. So that's why the Russians, if they were going to do anything up in the north, they would have to do it either during the winter or late summer once everything has dried, in kind of the dry season, when everything's kind of dried up and the ground is kind of hardened up again, or they'd have to do it in the basically mid to late winter, so sometime soon if they were to move down from the north again. Not very likely. In some aircraft news, let's hop over there onto our air traffic maps here. Again, since the beginning of the war, we've seen Ukraine basically devoid of all commercial aircraft flights. Nothing is tracked on Ukraine on the map here over Ukraine. Military vessel wise, we've seen the usual flights. I've been tracking them over the past few weeks. Our RQ-4 Global Hawk unmanned reconnaissance drones, things like Forte 10, which we were tracking at the beginning of the war, they're still frequenting over not only the Black Sea, but Romania up to Poland, Lithuania, etc., Latvia. Again, kind of doing their standard holding patterns, long range reconnaissance, etc. And so that's still been the norm. They're keeping an eye on things. And it's not just the U.S. There's other countries that have been doing recon flights as well over not only the Black Sea but over Europe. We've seen troop transports, supply transports, etc. Flying freely between European countries, Poland, etc. Bringing supplies in, bringing troops in again as we increase our forces and our readiness and our defenses there along these Baltic states here, along Russia's borders, basically. Not too much to report in the flight department, so to speak, tonight. We can go ahead and take a quick look at tonight's most tracked flights. However, it was kind of giving me some issues there. Yeah, so it's actually not showing any of the live flights this evening, so I won't be able to show you those. But possibly in the next report, we could take a look at some of the top tracked flights for the evening. Again, not so much, not very helpful, I would say, in the intel and reporting department, but it is kind of enlightening and sometimes fun to take a look at what flights are being tracked and some of that activity. So. Again, moving on, we'll take a look at Ukraine's alert map for today. So this map is a very excellent resource here, which we got our hands on in recent months here. This shows basically real-time air raid alerts on a map format. So before we got them, just municipal data sent in reports of when air raid sirens would go off in certain regions in Kyiv here, and now we have that information in one tool. We have that municipal data in one tool and visualized in map format. So it's actually really, really useful. I'll go ahead and just refresh this real quick here, just so I can get the latest information here for you guys. So again, today in Nemico City and its territorial community under threat there. You have quite a few, Kryvyi Rih, Dnipro, Dnipropetrovsk region, Kryvyi Rih. So there's been quite a bit of activity here on our map currently. We're looking at Nikopol City and this region here, Dnipropetrovsk. So it's not too far from the Zaporizhzhia region and also not far from Donetsk as well. So they've seen quite a few alerts in that region today. Again, this is an excellent tool, especially for when we're doing our 24/7 data stream. Being able to show those air raid alerts as they come in real time on a map is extremely valuable. So that about wraps up our Ukraine news. I might have a few tidbits to go over towards the end of the show, but now we're going to be switching gears. We're going to be hopping into. We'll be taking a look at China and Taiwan. Okay, things have again been very tense in the South Pacific over the past few years. But we've seen a definite uptick in events over the past few weeks, ever since, I would say, the start of December, but especially in the past week or two here since the new year. We've seen a dramatic uptick in activity in the South Pacific. Miss Tiger Eye is asking, show us flights around China. We will do that. I was showing you data for Ukraine. Now I'm switching over. We'll show you some data for China as well. So, Earlier this week, we got word. I believe it was Sunday. We got word China was they launched probably the biggest round of military drills off the coast of Taiwan that we've seen so far this year. I believe even trumps anything we saw last year as well. The amount of vessels that they had in play. The amount of forces they were moving around is concerning. So, and one reason I say it's concerning is because if you look back to the beginning of the Ukrainian war, what did we see first before they went over the border. Before they went over the border, we saw drills. The Russians were engaging in drills. They were engaging in readiness, increase in readiness level. They were moving equipment around. They were moving logistics around, etc. And so that's what you see first. Before any type of invasion, you're going to see that type of activity. And we've been seeing a little bit of that activity in China. I know a lot of people, again, are probably going to scream and chat, China has no chance of winning an invasion of Taiwan, etc. And of course, that is very true. That doesn't mean China's not going to try. All right, it's almost a 100% guarantee that under President Xi's administration, they will attempt to take Taiwan. Okay, there's been a number of war games that have been conducted, simulations, I should call them, over the past the recent months, and again, all signs point to if the U.S. and especially Japan got involved, China would stand no chance. Now that again depends on if Japan and the U.S. will get involved. If all of a sudden an invasion goes ahead, again, no, we do have the security commitment to Taiwan. We most likely would. It begs to differ. Would Japan? Would they step in? Especially when we're spread thin right now between Ukraine and Taiwan. Okay, so that it's kind of putting us in a tricky situation. Most intel analysts think that by 2026 we will see a invasion of Taiwan. Now, most estimates that I've seen recently would say that it's most likely to happen sooner rather than later, and there's a few reasons for that. The primary reasons are the longer that China waits, the more prepared the Taiwanese get. Okay, right now in the geopolitical sphere, you're seeing all of these calls after the launch of the Russian invasion on Ukraine. You see all these people saying, "Hey, we need to arm Taiwan. We need to arm them now. Okay, we need to give them that equipment that they need now, the training that they need now, the supplies that they need now, etc." And so, what I think. From a Chinese perspective, they're looking at this like, okay, we got to do something sooner rather than later, because the longer we wait, the less of a chance we have of a victory. Okay, from the Chinese perspective, and so there's two reasons why they would want to do this now. That what I was saying about the longer they wait, the more prepared Taiwan gets. But secondly, right now we are again stretched thin with the invasion of Ukraine. Okay, so with the Ukrainian war, we have, our ducks in many baskets, so to speak. Okay, there's been some reports recently of shortages of certain missiles, certain missile types that we would need in the event of a invasion of Taiwan by the Chinese. A lot of that gear has gone to Ukraine. All right, not to say that loss of equipment would help China at all, really, in the long run, because they would be most likely demolished by the forces of the U.S., Japan, etc. Whoever got involved, really. I mean, just the U.S. alone would absolutely demolish the Chinese Navy. However, geopolitically, we're stretched very thin between Ukraine and Taiwan. Okay, and so that's where it puts the Chinese at a kind of a little bit of an advantage right now. So if they move, they would want to do it sooner rather than later, and the reason being is they would be in a kind of in a geopolitical advantage and possibly even a tactical advantage with Taiwan not being as prepared as they will be in 2026. 2026 is, I believe, kind of one of the dates that most analysts, and I believe even the Chinese government, have stated that they want to have Taiwan reunified with mainland China. In this article here from the Military Times, I'll go ahead and get that up on screen here. And yes, as Ms. Tiger states there, also Guam. Yeah, you do have Guam. That would definitely come into play as well. So again, from Taipei, Taiwan, the Chinese military held large-scale joint combat strike drills starting Sunday, sending warplanes and Navy vessels towards Taiwan, both Chinese and Taiwanese defense ministries had said. The exercises coincided with the visit of a group of German lawmakers who landed in Taiwan on Monday. Leading the delegation is Marie-Agnes Strack-Zimmermann, who leads the German Parliament's Defense Committee. The German lawmakers will meet with Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen, as well as Taiwan's National Security Council head and the Mainland Affairs Council, which handles issues related to China. China has stepped up its pressures on Taiwan's military in recent years by sending warplanes or Navy vessels on an almost daily basis towards the self-ruled island. China claims sovereignty over the island, which split from mainland in 1949 after a civil war. Sunday's exercises have continued into Monday, Taiwan's defense ministry said, monitoring Chinese warplanes and naval vessels on its missile system. So, I should add to that two things here to add to that. First of all, is that they have, again, as they say here, they've been doing this almost on a daily basis for the past few years now. However, what we've seen over the past week or two has been a definite increase in the sheer amount, in the intensity of these drills and the intensity of these breaches into Taiwan's airspace. Now, I have where is it here? We have it here. So this came from the Ministry of National Defense of Taiwan over the past few days here. So I have a report here from the 10th. Or actually, sorry, this was from, and I'll just refresh this here so we can get updated time. This is from about 1 hour. Let me just confirm here. Yeah, so 8:06 p.m. This is from 1 hour ago. 15 PLA aircraft and 4 PLAN vessels. Again, that's the People's Liberation Army and People Liberation Army Navy vessels around Taiwan were detected by 6 a.m. UTC today. ROC armed forces have monitored the situation and tasked AP aircraft, Navy vessels, and land-based missile systems to respond to these activities. Another post here 1 hour ago. 6 of the detected aircraft had crossed the median line of Taiwan Strait and entered Taiwan's southwest air defense identification zone. Flight paths as illustrated. You can see here were illustrated on the map here. So again, they are getting pretty dang close to Taiwan, of course. Again, here, this was a post back from the 10th here. 8 PLA aircraft and 3 PLAN vessels around Taiwan were detected by 6 a.m. UTC. 7 of detected aircraft had crossed the median line of Taiwan Strait. Back on the 9th, 11, this was the post I had posted in Situation Room, 11 PLA aircraft and 3 PLAN vessels around Taiwan were detected, and it goes on and on and on and on and on. So, again, and so you see. So here again, here's another. We seek neither escalation nor conflict. Recently, PLA aircraft and PLAN vessels around Taiwan were commonly detected. Rough translation there. They're basically saying that they're seeing an increase, okay, in these breaches of Taiwan's air defense identification zone. Matteo says, but pronounce these cities though. Not even gonna try. I spent months trying to get my Ukrainian pronunciation up. I'm gonna have to work on the Taiwan pronunciations and get back to you guys on that one. Okay. Anyway, it says here, PLA's false accusation and irrational provocation have severely destabilized the security of Taiwan Strait and neighboring regions. ROC armed forces constantly monitor our surrounding area and respond to activities accordingly. We can and will keep our homeland safe. On January 8th, they sent 28 aircraft, or actually 57 PLA aircraft were on the 8th. That was, again, so that was Sunday. Okay, that was the Sunday post. On Sunday, that was massive. 57 aircraft and 4 PLA Navy vessels. So that's a lot of aircraft to be sent over. Here for the drill. So we're seeing increases not only in the readiness by China's military, but in the intensity of their drills and their movements in and around the strait there of Taiwan. Moving on from this, I'll go to our next post here. China calls military flights a response to U.S.-Taiwan collusion. This post comes from the Bluebird, was posted today, January 11th, 2023. China said the rising number of warplanes it sends towards Taiwan were due to the island's military collusion with the U.S., shedding light on its motives for the threatening activity. The People's Liberation Army says drills are a solemn warning against Taipei's increased provocation, which damaged peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait. Spokesperson for China's Taiwan Affairs Office said Wednesday a briefing in Beijing. Democratic Progressive Party authorities have recently intensified military collusion with the U.S. He added, referring to the ruling party of Taiwan Taiwanese President Tai Ing-wen. When asked what exact conclusion entailed, Ma said the facts are clear, adding that all people living on Earth know it. That was an apparent reference to U.S. lawmakers last month agreeing to a spending bill that included $2 billion in weapons funding for Taiwan. So really just 1 second here, guys. You want to talk about weapons spending for Ukraine. Okay, I'm just going to get a quick figure here for you. I want just the weapons here. So the U.S. has sent about, if I were to get a concrete figure here, in 2022, the Biden administration and the U.S. Congress have directed nearly $50 billion in assistance to Ukraine. Again, that includes humanitarian, financial, and military support. I want just the military numbers here. I know it's a lot. It's a ton. But $2 billion with a B to China as well, which again is going to continue to increase here. Here's military. So military spending was $22.94 billion for the entire year of 2022 for Ukraine for military spending. So that's quite a significant amount. $2 billion is a serious chunk of change here. Again, that's just weapons funding for Taiwan for the next year, and as much as $10 billion through 2027. I guarantee we will see that increase in the coming months and over the next year. If an invasion doesn't happen, again, I like to reiterate this. This could happen at almost any time. We didn't expect the Ukraine invasion by Russia to happen in the way it did. I know the Russians didn't expect it to go the way it has, but point being, we have to be prepared for these things, and we have to stay vigilant. The Taiwanese are nowhere near as prepared as they should be, as they will need to be in the event of a Chinese invasion. The Chinese arguably aren't as prepared as they would need to be to invade, but they do have numbers, and their administration is I would say crazy enough to do it. Okay, and they are in a position right now. Again, as I spoke to earlier about having the U.S. be stretched between Ukraine and China puts them in an advantage, and also having Taiwan in the spot it's in now, where it's this is before that $2 billion is going there. This is before. I mean, we've already armed them significantly, but not nowhere as near as much as we need to. And so China, from their perspective, they're thinking, okay, well, if we can move in on them before they have a chance to prepare properly, we might have an upper hand. Again, either way, most likely the U.S. will get involved. If Japan gets involved, if Australia gets involved, again, that's another question. It depends. We'll have to wait and see how things go down. Again, here's another article talking about how Chinese warplane flights near Taiwan surged in 2022 amongst tensions. My speculation is that in 2023 we're going to see quadruple the amount of activity, and so far that's already proven true over the past just 5 to 7 days. We've seen a sharp increase. Speaking to some of those war games, some of those simulations that occurred, that have been performed by military experts and analysts, Taiwan invasion by China would fail, but at huge cost, a huge U.S. cost. Again, analyst war game finds. Read a little bit about this here. A Chinese invasion of Taiwan would probably fail if the United States helped defend the island, but would come at a debilitating cost to American military itself, according to a U.S. think tank. Military experts brought together by the Center of Strategic and International Affairs, Center for Strategic and International Studies, to a war game conflict, and said every likely direct participant in a war, the United States, China, Taiwan, Japan, would experience enormous losses. Chinese missiles would probably destroy U.S. air bases in Japan. That includes Guam, and as far as Guam, and sink 2 U.S. aircraft carriers and between 10 and 20 destroyers and cruisers as the invasion opened. That's just in the opening of the invasion. All right, but the Chinese invading force itself would be destroyed before it ever occupied any significant part of Taiwan, and ultimately it would be prevented from its goal of capturing the island's capital, Taipei, according to most scenarios tested. That, as well as damage incurred on mainland targets from Taiwanese counterattacks, could destabilize Chinese Communist Party rule, the report says. We reached two conclusions, said Eric Hinobotham, a security expert at Massachusetts Institute of Technology. First, under most circumstances, China is unlikely to succeed in its operational objectives to occupy Taipei, he said. Second, the cost of war would be high for all involved, certainly to include the United States. Again, I imagine that China most likely is doing some of their own simulations, some of their own war games. Again, to kind of get their own idea of where that could go if they did actually invade. I'm sure they probably have a different perspective on the invasion. I'm sure China probably thinks that under certain circumstances they could get the upper hand. As Miss Tiger Eye adds, yes, Guam is U.S. territory. A lot of people don't realize this, but this would be a direct conflict. This isn't a Ukraine situation where you have kind of a proxy war going on between Ukraine and Russia. This is more so a direct confrontation between the U.S. and China. It most likely would stay, limited and kinetic in nature. I don't think it would spill over to become nuclear unless things got really, really bad, really, really quickly. Of course, there's always room for a major miscalculation, and so that's why we have to avoid this situation via deterrence. Part of that is awareness, okay? It's the reason why we're now doing a Taiwan stream as well as a Ukraine stream, because awareness is the first step of the battle here. It's the first. It's the first battle of the war. Is making awareness, creating awareness, so that Taiwan can be properly. Properly prepared. Okay, we increase awareness here at home domestically. That thus increases spending going towards Taiwan, which in the long run will increase our chances of winning. And possibly, if Taiwan is armed enough, if Taiwan is capable enough, we might not even need to get involved. Okay, it very much in the same way that. That Ukraine has been able to hold back the Russians without NATO involvement or U.S. involvement or anybody else's help, of course, besides funding and weapons, etc. It's the same situation with Taiwan. If we're able to viably prepare Taiwan quick enough and with enough weapons, enough assets, enough supplies, etc., enough training. Training is a big one as well. China either A, will lose an invasion just from the Taiwanese being able to defend, making it very hard for them to invade, or China might decide not to invade in the first place. Okay, that's the real key here is deterrence. Okay, getting Taipei, getting Taiwan prepared enough so that China thinks twice about moving in on Taiwan. In what a wargamers called the most likely scenario, Taiwan's army would bog the invaders down on the coast, right there. So you see, right there, they're talking about, they're not even mentioning U.S. involvement here at this point. Taiwan within itself, if prepared adequately, could in theory basically thwart the Chinese invasion without even any U.S. involvement. Now, of course, the U.S. would most likely have to get involved down the road, as if China's initial invasion failed, they would continue to bombard Taiwan. They would continue to attempt to attack Taiwan, and so I think inevitably either way, the U.S. would have to get involved in some capacity. Saying here again in the quote, meanwhile, U.S. submarines, bombers, and fighters/attack aircraft, often reinforced by Japan's self-defense forces, rapidly cripple the Chinese amphibious fleet. So, U.S. would most likely be kind of in a naval and an aircraft position. The Taiwanese would be on the ground defending the shorelines from actual Chinese troops trying to make their way onto the island of Taiwan. China's strikes on Japanese bases and U.S. surface ships cannot change the result. Taiwan remains autonomous, it said. Again, I guarantee you the Chinese have ran these simulations very similar to this and probably have a very different view on this. I agree with these U.S. analysts, though, with the way that... again, China always talks about how they have a bigger navy than the U.S. It doesn't really matter because when it comes to the capabilities of our naval equipment, our naval capabilities are vastly superior to anything that the Chinese have access to. Now, there are a few scenarios here where China could gain the upper hand. They could use something like a tactical nuclear weapon. They could They could do something like an EMP strike. There are many things that they could try to do to gain the upper hand in the initial invasion, which might allow them some wiggle room there. Again, it's very unlikely. Um, Switching over here, I got my my map here. I'm going to open up the Taiwan live map here. I think it's a pretty good resource to show here. So just like Ukraine, we have a live awareness map for Taiwan as well. It's not as updated as the Ukraine one. I would really like to see those Ministry of Defense updates uh, uh, get pushed to this universal awareness map more often. We could see that change in the coming months as this rhetoric increases, as this activity increases. But again, it shows like some reports from the past about 20 days or so. Here's one of those Ministry of Defense posts. Again, you can see all of those on the actual Ministry of Defense website or their Twitter account. Again, but this resource here will become very valuable going forward, I think, as the Chinese forces continue to escalate here along the Strait of Taiwan. You can see here again, these are some of those reports of those PLA aircraft as they came into Taiwan's air defense identification zone, which again, I believe is this line here. When they cross that line into this airspace here, they are technically in Taiwan's air defense zone. One thing to start with here. These islands here that you see are most likely what they would try to take first, are these outlying islands. Even as far as some of these, I believe these are Japanese islands. If I'm not mistaken, I think these are in the territory of Japan. They might even look at taking some of these islands here in the South Pacific as possible. I think that would be their first step, is taking some of these smaller islands, possibly creating. If they can, I'm not sure. I don't know the geography too well, but they could possibly create some, maybe some. I know there are airstrips here on these islands. They could create some uh, um, air bridges, so to speak, here going from Chinese mainland over to this island here in Taiwan. So that could be one of the first things we see, is them look to take some of these smaller outlying islands in the event of an invasion. Anyway, point being, this tool here, I believe, is going to continue to be pretty valuable, not just for Ukraine, but Taiwan going forward as well. To read a few of these posts, here says Japanese defense deployment of a missile defense unit on Yonaguni Island near Taiwan. You can see here an air defense missile system was posted there on that island. 16 days ago, Taiwan extends mandatory military service to 1 year. So again, I think that is that's when you see moves like that by an attacking force or a defending force, you know something is different. Okay, if they're that's almost, it's not in the same vein as mobilization, but it is in this in a way it's pointed towards, okay, they need to make sure that they have troops there in the event that something goes down. And by extending that military service to 1 year, they can make sure that if something happens within this next year, they'll still have those troops that have been trained in today. They'll have them then. Personnel, having a good fighting force is really important for the Taiwanese. Not just that, but having the equipment, and more importantly, the training on that equipment will be extremely valuable going forward. 16 days ago, U.S. National Security Council, we are concerned about provocative Chinese military activity near Taiwan. That was 16 days ago. Okay. 16 days ago, White House National Security Advisor, we are concerned about Chinese military activities in the vicinity of Taiwan. All right. I feel like for the most part, over the past few months, and I know a lot of focus has been on Ukraine, and for good reason. Okay, we can't forget about Ukraine at all, but things have started to heat up near China. All right, and a lot of people have kind of ignored this, saying, "Oh, they'll never do it. They'll get destroyed. They'll get decimated by the U.S." Even so, it's very important that we keep an eye on this situation here in Taiwan and China. Even back when the Ukrainian war broke out, I was talking about China and Taiwan and the possibilities there. But now things have really started to heat up. New Year's till now, especially in 2023, we've definitely seen some increases in not just rhetoric from the Chinese, but actual on the ground movements from the Chinese. And so that's what's really scary, is when you start to see more movements on the ground, when you start to see heightened readiness level. Again, that's a word I like to use a lot. It's the same things we saw starting to happen before the Russians moved into Ukraine. We saw a lot. Yeah, and as Miss Tiger Eye says, a perfect point here. Miss Tiger Eye says this is more imminent for the U.S. in my opinion. That is exactly right. That is why this is important. Is because again, this would be we have a direct responsibility to defend the people of Taiwan, and that's why this is a big deal. So. I've said this in the past. The U.S. and most analysts they have this saying, and it goes that Russia was the temporary challenge. Or Russia is the temporary challenge. With Ukraine, China is the long-term threat. Okay, China is the long-term problem that we need to deal with because China, again, we would basically be in a direct combat scenario with China if this occurred. As Matt says, Russia bluffs, but I have a strong feeling when China makes a move, there will be no bluffing whatsoever. That is very true. See, on one part of things, China doesn't have a lot of combat experience, if any. Okay. However, they do have a pretty capable military. All right, and after the events of the Russian invasion, there's two things here. After the events of the Russian invasion, I don't like to overestimate the abilities of an invading force, in this case China, right? It's hard to adequately estimate how effective they will be on the battlefield. However, we cannot, and it's extremely important that we do not underestimate China's ability here. All right, that would be our downfall. Is if we underestimate China, we don't pay attention here to what's going on, and then they make a move. Okay. China is a completely different country. China has a completely different military. They have completely different equipment. All right, they have a completely different fighting force. I do believe that Chinese fighters would be a lot more motivated, possibly than Russian invaders. Okay, the Russian invaders, their command system is still in tatters. Has been since the start of the war. Their morale is low. The Chinese are different. Their mentality is different. Their ideology is different. I do believe in some way that their military would be a lot more motivated. They would definitely throw a lot of bodies at the issue, which is, again, what Russia is doing now. It would be a largely different war than what we're seeing in Ukraine. There would be similarities, but I do expect that China has every intention of moving in on Taiwan at some point, more likely sooner rather than later. If I was China, okay, this is the way you got to think about these things. If you want to know what Russia's going to do next, you got to think like Russia, okay? And I know it's kind of hard because they can be a little confusing sometimes in how they're making movements on the ground, and again, some of the stuff that comes out of their mouths. But the Russian forces, completely different entity than the Chinese forces. And again, I like to reiterate that if I was the Chinese, all right, I would make a move while the going's good, okay, so to speak. I would make a move while the U.S. is distracted with Ukraine, while our resources, that's important, our resources, not just weapon systems, but our funding is stretched to Ukraine, okay, stretched to the limit, all right. And I would make a move before Taiwan has any more ability to prepare, because after Ukraine, after the invasion of Ukraine, you better believe that Taiwan is taking precautions, that Taiwan is making moves to defend itself now. Okay, they know that there's a definite possibility that China will invade, and they need to do something to defend their country. Again, moving on here, I have some other articles I'll quickly roll through. From Beijing, China renewed its threats Wednesday to attack Taiwan and warned that foreign politicians who interact with the self-governing island are playing with fire, he says there. Spokesperson for China's Taiwan Affairs Office said the country was recommitted in the new year to safeguarding sovereignty and territorial integrity and smashing plots, quote here, smashing plots for Taiwan independence on the self-governing democracy that separated from mainland China in 1949. The malicious support for Taiwan independence among anti-China elements in a few foreign countries are a deliberate provocation, said at a bi-weekly Ma Zhao Guang, again, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, they're said at a bi-weekly news conference. It says China's views Taiwan as Chinese territory that must be brought under Beijing's control by force if necessary. A string of visits in recent months by foreign politicians to Taiwan, including by then U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and numerous politicians from the European Union, spurred displays of military might from both sides. Another thing I should mention here is, so a lot of people might say, okay, China, and I've heard this argument many times from people, and I think it's totally invalid, say that, China, they saw what occurred in Ukraine, and they realized that it'll be harder than they think. And even Miss Tiger, I said I think I think the China and Taiwan cities are going to be harder for you to say than Ukraine. Yes, yeah, they are definitely going to be harder for me to pronounce. However, we'll have to see. So I think one thing to realize here, and I've heard this a lot from people, is so people say that China has seen the dismal performance of the Russian military, and they'll think twice about invading Taiwan. I don't think that's the case at all. I actually think the direct opposite. I think that the invasion of Ukraine by Russia has basically motivated China's leadership to move forward with an invasion of Taiwan, and there's a reason for that. I believe they've seen, especially in the early days of the war, how the geopolitical reaction occurred. It took a while. There was some lag time between us sending aid, etc., over to Ukraine and getting it there. There was some lag time there, and I think they want to capitalize on that. They want to capitalize on. They want to try to do again like a lightning advance. Same thing that Russia tried to do on Kyiv earlier in the war. I mean, if China can move in on Taiwan, super quick. And if they somehow got the upper hand, let's say via an EMP device or something like a tactical nuclear weapon or some kind of strike on, say, Taiwan's communication infrastructure and their power infrastructure, it would give them the upper hand. They might be able to swoop in on Taiwan and take it before the U.S. even has a chance to fully respond. If that's the case, it's possible that you would see the U.S. again say, okay, it's not worth it to us, to lose all these vessels, to possibly get into this global conflict with China and risk thermonuclear war. All right, that is a very real possibility here. On the other hand, though, there's certain things, there's certain assets in Taiwan that the U.S. is not willing to basically give up to China, but might in the end have no choice. I'm speaking to things like the chip manufacturing fabs, the TSMC fabs in Taiwan. A lot of people, I've argued with quite a few people about, if China was to invade, if they took Taiwan, that the U.S. would destroy those fabs, and they wouldn't let them fall into Chinese hands. One reason I think that wouldn't happen is because of the economic impact on the global scale. It almost would be a better thing for China to have those fabs than for them to be completely destroyed. It would completely decimate the global economy everywhere. I mean, imagine not having new chips for any phones, computers, not just that, but for military hardware and stuff like that. We have our own TSMC fabs coming up here in the United States and abroad now, which will hopefully fill some of that demand in the future, but it's nowhere near the capacity that those fabs in Taiwan have. So there's two possibilities here. Either A, they blow the fabs. I would say three possibilities. Either A, they blow the fabs, they destroy them, sabotage them so that China can't get them. I don't think that would happen. Or they let them fall into Chinese hands, a little bit more likely. Or the U.S. fights for Taiwan. If they fight for those fabs and they go in and we have all-out war. Again, something that we want to avoid. It's something that we need to increase deterrence so that we can avoid that conflict with China. That's the main point here that I'm trying to get at. Moving on here, Japan to expand island military base near Taiwan after China's missile drills. Japan is expanding a military base on a tiny island east of Taiwan months after Chinese military's ballistic missiles landed near its shores last year, rattling locals amid worsening regional military tensions. Yonaguni, a remote outpost of Japan's southern Okinawa prefecture, is located 110 kilometers from Taiwan and near the Diaoyu Islands, a group of islands claimed by Beijing but administered by Tokyo. That's the key word there. I'm pretty sure these are in here somewhere, if I'm not mistaken. Again, I'm not completely familiar with the geography here, But it's one of these islands along this chain of islands here that they're looking to create this base. This post, by the way, came today, or sorry, yesterday at 8 a.m., the 10th of January. So this is new information here. In August, Yonaguni's 1,700 residents were shocked when 6 Chinese missiles fell just off its shores in the waters. In waters Tokyo considers to be within Japan's exclusive economic zone. Yonaguni Island. So it is right here. Sorry. Come on, where are you, Yonaguni Island? Here it is. So here's Yonaguni Island, okay? And it's right up smack dab next to Taiwan. I was just talking about this island earlier in the report here. It is right here next to Taiwan. And again, Taiwan extends mandatory... where is that here? Where's that post? There it is. Japanese defense, deployment of a missile defense unit on Yonaguni Island near Taiwan. So, that was 16 days ago. They've now come out in the past few days and said they're expanding the island's military base near Taiwan. They need equipment, they need assets nearest to the island as they can possibly get in the event of a Chinese invasion of the island. Again, here from DW is another article just talking about those conducting of military drills by China ahead of that German MP's arrival. A high-ranking sorry, I'm having a little bit of a speech impediment here. Parliamentary delegation from Germany landed in Taiwan for a 4-day visit on Monday. The team arrived as Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense reported that Chinese warplanes had been detected in its airspace on Sunday. The Chinese People's Liberation Army announced that it had carried out military drills around Taiwan. Chinese forces had organized, quote, joint combat readiness patrols and actual combat drills in the sea and airspace around Taiwan. Another report here coming from the Bloomberg talking about U.S. and Japan to deepen space and military ties as China's threat grows. The U.S. and Japan announced plans to strengthen defense cooperation on land, at sea, and in space as they expressed growing concern about the growing challenge posed by China and its ties with Russia. Keyword there, ties with Russia. Speaking after a day of security talks in Washington, officials said Wednesday that the two sides were set to sign an agreement that will strengthen cooperation in space, including the U.S. agreeing to defend against an attack on Japan's space assets in some cases. They also committed to more bilateral military training and a realignment of U.S. forces in the region to be able to better respond to any threat by China. Another thing which is worth mentioning here is that in recent days I've seen a significant increase in aircraft movements in and around those Japanese islands by the U.S. military. Let's go ahead and refresh our live flight tracker here. And we'll move our way over to Japan. Actually, let's go to ADSB. That's a much better resource here. We'll see. So as you can see here right now, I mean, Japan and all the way down to the Philippines here is much more highly active with U.S. military aircraft than Ukraine and Europe. Okay, that goes to show a little bit here about how we're treating the situation in the South Pacific. Okay, having all these aircraft moving around here, you can see there is a readiness level here. They're moving amongst these islands here as well, in between Guam, in between these Japanese islands here. There's a lot of Japanese military activity and U.S. military activity in this region here, much more so than over in the area of Ukraine. We do see our typical RCH flights, our typical stratotanker flights, our unmanned reconnaissance drones, etc. We're seeing almost double or triple that over here in the Pacific here. All right, bouncing back to my reports I had here. Chinese aircraft crossed the Taiwan Strait median line in second round of combat drills. Again, reported by abc.net.australia. The Australians, again, most likely will get involved in some capacity here if war does break out in the South Pacific. The Chinese military has conducted a second round of combat drills around Taiwan this month, with the island's defense ministry reporting it had detected 57 aircraft from the mainland of China. Again, kind of just going through some other stuff that we had already read about. Again, it's kind of just reiterating here how many of these drills have taken place just in the past 2 weeks here. Japan is to okay a new U.S. Marine littoral regiment on Okinawa. So again, they are moving a regiment of U.S. Marines to Okinawa. Japan on Wednesday will formally approve U.S. plans for a new Marine quick reaction force on Okinawa and unveil plans to deepen military cooperation on Japan's remote southwest islands near Taiwan, according to U.S. officials. All right, so that about sums up all of the news I had for Taiwan and China. I'm now going to move on to some other quick stories here that we'll get to. First off, this evening, again, we have the news coming out of Brazil over this past week. There were major riots there in Brazil, in the capital of Brazil. More than 1,200 people have been formally arrested and are being charged in relation to the riot at Brazil's Congress. It was very similar to the scenes we saw January 6th here in the United States when there was a storming of Congress here, of the U.S. Congress. Authorities have 5 days to charge suspects who have been formally arrested. In total, more than 1,500 people were detained after the riot in Brazil. Concerns about potential further protests have prompted a large security force deployment in Brazil's capital. Brazilian federal police sources say that those being formally charged are being held at the force's academy in Brasilia, where most of the arrested were taken after the riot, and some have been moved to other facilities. The authorities have warned that some of the detainees who have been released may ultimately be arrested amid the ongoing investigation, and they have expressed concern that more rallies could be organized by hardline supporters of the former Brazilian president, Jair Bolsonaro. Again, according to a memo from the federal prosecutors seen by the BBC, pro-Bolsonaro groups have been calling for, quote, mega demonstrations to take place across Brazilian state capitals. Another post here. Brazil rioters plotted openly online and pitched, quote, a huge party. The map was called Beach Trip and was blasted out to more than 18,000 members of a public telegram channel called, in Portuguese, Hunting and Fishing. But instead of outdoor recreation tips, the 43 pins spread across the map of Brazil pointed to cities where bus transportation to the capital could be found for what promoters promised would be, quote, a huge party on January 8th. A quote saying children and the elderly weren't invited, according to the post circulated on the Telegram channel, which has since been removed. Quote, only adults willing to participate in all the games, including target shooting of police and robbers, musical chairs in indigenous dancing, tag, and others. The post was one of several thinly coded messages circulated on social media ahead of Sunday's violent attack on the Capitol by supporters of former President Jair Bolsonaro, looking to restore the far-right leader to power. The Brazilian president condemned Sunday's riot as, quote, terrorist acts. I have a little video here that we can show you guys now on screen. Let's take a look.
Brazilian President Lula da Silva has issued a statement rejecting Sunday's riots as terrorist acts and called on the population to defend peace and democracy. Euronews international correspondent Annalise Borges sent this report from Florianopolis.
Authorities have now retaken government buildings stormed by protesters in Brazil's capital, Brasilia, and have been escorting demonstrators out of the city. Many of those demonstrators have been camping out in front of the armed forces headquarters since last October, protesting against presidential election results, demanding military intervention and the resignation of President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. An investigation is now open and some 1,200 people have been detained so far. An investigation is also open into who offered transportation to those traveling from other parts of the country, and MPs are demanding a query into why police didn't do more to prevent demonstrators from reaching government buildings, including the presidential palace. The presidential palace, which is where President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has been working from today, attempting to send a message that the situation is once again under control in Brazil. Annalise Borges in Florianopolis, southern Brazil, for Euronews.
Yeah, they were talking a little bit about the those riots there in Brazil, those protests that occurred. Moving on, we're going to get into some cyber news here. Talk a little bit about some events that have happened in the cyber sphere here, and not just overall cyber stuff, but we'll also talk a little bit about some Russian-Ukrainian related cyber stuff as well here. Today, this was posted today, Royal Mail export services severely disrupted after, quote, a cyber incident. London, January 11th, reported by Reuters here. Britain's Royal Mail said on Wednesday it was facing severe disruption to its international export services following what it described as, quote, a cyber incident. We are temporarily unable to dispatch items to overseas destinations. Royal Mail, one of the world's largest post and parcel firms, said in a service update on its website. It advised customers to temporarily hold any export mail items while it works to resolve the issue. The company says thousands of businesses use it to export around the world. Royal Mail, part of the International Distribution Services, said it was working with external experts to investigate the incident and had also reported it to regulators and security authorities. Britain's data protection watchdog, the Information Commissioner's Office, said it would be making inquiries, while the National Cybersecurity Center said it was working with the company alongside the National Crime Agency to fully understand the impact. And it just so happens what else was not working right today. So you had the Royal Mail again shut down today. We also had flight cancellations and delays across the entire United States today, as the FAA had a massive system outage, which now has been reported to have been caused by a quote, a database error, or we'll see the exact wording here in a second, but there still is no exact explanation to what occurred today, but I find it interesting that both of these events basically occurred within hours of each other. Thousands of flights are delayed or canceled after the Federal Aviation Administration ordered a nationwide pause on domestic flight departures on Wednesday. The FAA's system for alerting pilots and airports of real-time hazards, called NOTAM, Notice to Air Missions, went dark around 3:28 a.m. Eastern Time, sparking safety concerns. As of noon Eastern Time, more than 6,988 flights into, within, or out of country had been delayed, and just over 1,100 have been canceled altogether, according to data from the tracking site FlightAware. Here's a post actually from the Secretary Pete Buttigieg. Again, I can't pronounce that. FAA has determined that the safety system affected by the overnight outage is fully restored, and the nationwide ground stop will be lifted effective immediately. I have directed an after-action process to determine root causes and recommend next steps. And I actually had, here we go. Here was the updated article on that. More than 1,300 flights were delayed and nearly 100 were canceled Wednesday afternoon after a corrupted file knocked out a government system that provides pilots with critical information, halting flights across the nation overnight. We don't have any more information than that. Basically, a corrupted database file is what they're saying took down that FAA system. Go back here, close out of that. Okay, another one here. This was, again, for Royal Mail's export system. We basically read that already. The last article I have here from the realm of cyber stuff here going on, cyber-related report here, is a Russian cyber attack disrupts Banksy's print sale, benefiting humanitarian efforts in Ukraine. The website hosting applications for the limited edition artwork was overwhelmed by entries, basically a DDoS attack here, many from suspicious sources within Russia. In early December, the anonymous street artist Banksy announced that he had partnered with the Legacy of War Foundation to offer 50 unique prints depicting the word fragile, scratched out by a rat. Proceeds set to go towards rescue efforts in Ukraine war-torn regions. Interested collectors were instructed to register online for a chance at one of the artworks, priced at €5,000, $6,000 a pop. But just as soon as applications went live, the system hosting them was overwhelmed by entries, many of which came from suspicious sources in Russia. We are currently sifting through the registered entries and will notify successful applicants shortly, the Legacy of War Foundation wrote in a message published on the print sale landing page. It's basically a DDoS attack here. I believe the actual form system that they used for these applications was actually was exploited, and basically they just flooded it with a bunch of bogus applications. But I believe this site also came under a DDoS attack, if I'm not mistaken. Speaking of DDoS attacks, we'll take a quick look at today's cyber situation here over on NetScout Threat Horizon, which again shows us a real-time visualization of current DDoS events. Today we have a pretty active day today, currently showing 178 unique DDoS events that are ongoing. Again, for the 12th of January here. Again. I don't have any specifics on a lot of these, but you can see a lot of activity between the United States, Russia. We've noticed a lot of activity between China and Russia as well. So again, some very interesting reports there. If you would like to take a look at this map, it's a very interesting resource. You can find it at horizon.netscout.com. All right, switching back over to our pointer screen here. A final article I have here for us tonight talks about soaring food and energy prices could persist for the next 2 years. Soaring prices for energy and food could persist for the next 2 years, hurting global efforts to combat poverty and the climate crisis. A report prepared for next week's World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, has warned. The WEF's annual global risks report found the international cost of living crisis unleashed by the COVID pandemic and Russia's war in Ukraine topped the list of concerns in a survey more than 1,200 global expert policymakers and business leaders. Again, I'd just like to add that a situation with China and Taiwan would exponentially increase these issues. Okay, it would dramatically exacerbate these issues with energy and food if we were to see a situation unfold in the South Pacific. Sounding the alarm in the run-up to the annual gathering of world leaders in the Swiss mountain resort, it said the energy and food supply crunch was likely to persist for the next 2 years as the biggest risk to the world economy, highlighting how the pandemic and the war in Europe have triggered a series of deeply interconnected global risks. It said the fallout could undermine collaboration between countries to tackle longer-term problems, including the climate crisis, protecting biodiversity, and the efforts to reduce poverty. That about ends our reporting for this evening. I do have a few things to end on. Again, thank you to everybody that tuned in this evening for tonight's weekly report. We'll be doing these every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be starting a little bit of a fundraiser in the next week or so here. There's a charity here called SignMyRocket.com, and basically they're raising money. They're basically raising money for equipment for Ukrainian soldiers, and it's a really good program they have going here. Basically, for a certain amount of money, we can write a message on a artillery shell of our choosing. They have a couple different. We have 155 millimeter HIMARS, M9A2 Excalibur, MiG-29, which again is a plane. You can basically. You can have a custom message written on a shell or whatever it may be here. They'll take a video or a photo of it, and then they'll send that to us. And all of the funds go to buying equipment for Ukrainian defenders. Okay, so it's a really good program here. It's a really good charity. I think it'd be kind of cool if we got a little fundraiser going. We'll probably start that in the next week here. We'll be raising money. My plan was to go for probably a video of a 155 millimeter firing. We'll have a message there from Nemico Network on the shell. Price on that is $1,000 US dollars for that video. So that's probably where we're going to start at with our funding cap, but I think it'd be really cool. They've showed I've seen quite a few videos and photos of people of the shells that they had. That they've had launched. You can also get things like stickers on a MiG-29. I thought that'd be pretty cool. I think what would be probably the best is to do one of the video ones because we could use it for the streams and stuff. So I was thinking either M77 howitzer or 155 millimeter, or maybe text on a piece of artillery. We could do that too. We'll see how it goes. I'll be releasing more details about that in the coming days. I think that would be a pretty cool idea. And so, again, keep your eyes out for that. Let me pop back over here to our situation room. Joe Blown Wind says kickoff for Sign My Rocket. Thank you so much for. I guess we've already started. Thank you so much, Joe Blown Wind. You've been a great supporter of the channel recently. Thank you so much for tossing that support towards the Sign My Rocket fund. I'll go ahead and I guess we'll get that started. I'll probably put up a post about that in the next few days here. I might even do a video about it. I have quite a few videos in the works right now. That are coming your guys' way in the next days to weeks here. There's one that I'm hoping to get out this week, which I've been pretty pumped about. It's kind of just like more of an art piece really than anything, but I'm going to be starting to do some dedicated like small videos on individual topics, things like cyber, things like the Ukrainian war effort. Basically covering individual topics in and around some of these global security issues. Another thing, earlier this week I put out a community poll on the community page on our YouTube channel. It was basically asking what videos you'd like to see most from us in the coming months. An astonishing 531 of you guys went over and voted on that poll. I can't thank you guys enough for responding to that poll. How you did, it was great. I absolutely love reading all your guys' comments and seeing where you guys would like to see the channel go in the future. If you haven't already, go ahead. You can still go vote in that poll. It's actually over. On the YouTube channel in the community page. Speaking of which, I didn't run a community poll in the live chat tonight, as tonight's my first weekly report, so I'm still kind of getting into the swing of things, but we will be doing live chat polls on the streams going forward. I just didn't have I didn't have any question for that poll tonight, so I'll be working on that for next week's poll. But anyway, back to the poll over on our community page on the YouTube channel. Go over there, vote on that. 58% of you said you would like to see continuing Ukraine war coverage. Of course, that's a given. The other options were global intel reports such as China, Russia, Ukraine, Taiwan, etc. 31% of you voted for those. We had only about 4% of people vote for cyber-related content. We will be doing some cyber-related content, as that's kind of like what my focus has been on the channel in the past, and I will kind of continue to touch on those subjects a little bit because I believe they are really important, especially in today's day and age. The cyber side of conflict is really an important is like cyber warfare is a really important part of modern warfare. So I think it's important that we do kind of keep tabs on that. 3% of you said you wanted to see some Nemico original content, films, shorts, gaming, etc. I might do some of that down the road in the future. And then coming up here this summer, of course, we will have continuing. We'll be doing some occasional fireworks stuff because that's where the channel started back in the day. Was doing mostly fireworks stuff, and I still like to blow stuff up. So we will eventually do that. I actually have a 50,000 subscriber special, which we were supposed to release last year. Actually late last summer for July 4th. That ended up getting scrapped because of we had some issues with our filming of that video. We went all in getting this massive fireworks show and all these crazy things that we did, and the footage ended up getting ruined. So that was unfortunate, but I will be making up for it, and we'll be doing a big 50,000 subscriber special at some point here in the near future, and I'll definitely keep you guys posted on that. But going forward, the main focuses again are going to be Ukraine war coverage, these global intel reports, which are going to be a weekly thing. Every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll be here on the channel doing a live report, and then of course the cyber-related stuff will go along with that in tandem. These reports, again, live streamed for everybody that tuned in. I really enjoy you guys stopping by, taking some time out of your day to learn about what's going on in the world. But for those of you guys that didn't make it for the whole stream, I will be uploading these to the YouTube channel, and not in the traditional way that I used to do it. I used to just take like a big, just cut just a whole thing of the whole report, and I would just upload it to the channel raw. I'm going to be later tonight or hopefully either later this evening or tomorrow morning, I'll be going through, and my plan is to slightly edit them, basically kind of cut it down from about 2 hours. Actually, we're up at almost the 3 hour mark now. From about 3 hours, maybe down to an hour, and do like the main reports. I'm still kind of figuring that one out. I might run a poll for it over on the Discord or maybe on the community page. I haven't figured that out yet, to see where you guys think it should go. I might either condense them down slightly, or maybe do like a full edit on them, or I might just upload them as I traditionally did, with just the whole report. I'm still trying to work through that, so we'll see how that turns out after this report is done, being live broadcasted here. Let me see what else. So again, before we get into a little bit of a Q&A, if anybody's interested, again, we do have the Discord server. It stayed completely active, more so than I ever could imagined, in the months that I was away from the stream. People over there posting every day, constantly. I love reading your guys' comments. I love reading your guys' discussions. I'm there. I am reading them. I do read what you guys are saying, and it makes my day. Not only seeing some of the discussions that occur, but seeing some of the intel that is shared and the reports that are shared, and I mean even some of the wacky, fun conversations that we have over there. They're awesome. So if you guys are interested in that, there's always a link in the description below to where you can join. The we can join the Discord server. Everybody is welcome to join. You can pick up ranks over in the welcome channel of that Discord server. And if you post reports in the Situation Room, you might have them included on these weekly reports. Also, if you haven't already, smash that like button. It's the best way to get the algorithm's attention. Always really important. If you haven't already, if you're viewing this stream or if you're viewing this video and you haven't subscribed, it's the best way to support the channel is to subscribe. And get that algorithm's attention. That's the best way to support us by far. Second to that is to comment. Let us know what your questions are. Let us know what your opinions are. We love to hear from you guys. We read every single person's message that is sent over. I read everybody's comments. Another thing, share this stream. It's the best way to get this information into the hands of other people. Okay. Again, as I said earlier in the show, awareness is probably the most important factor in all of this. No, I know, a lot of people have wondered what happened to the channel over the course of the summer. We were 100% at what would be a good way to put this lightly? We were hindered by the YouTube algorithm for sure, mostly due to just some of the content we were showing on the stream, especially earlier in the war, and some of the toxic discussions that were happening between Russian bots and pro-Ukrainian individuals in the chats. The algorithm doesn't take too kindly to some of that stuff. It doesn't take too kindly to some of the content we were showing earlier in the war, and we were, of course, pretty severely shadow banned for that. So again, we're kind of starting that recovery process now, trying to get people back into the streams, people watching the videos again, and that's again why I'm focusing more on some of the video content moving forward. Again, we will be doing the weekly Intel streams like we did tonight, but I think the video content moving forward, that's not only where I shine the most, or when it comes to editing and stuff, but the algorithm I think likes that stuff a little better anyway. It's more easily catered to the algorithm, and of course I will continue to, as always, cover the subjects that matter, not only to me but to you guys, and cover the things that are most important on a global scale. Things like the Ukraine war. We're not going to. I said this, throughout the entire course of this war. We'll be here reporting until the war is over. We're not going anywhere. We did take a break there for a little while, but we're back now in force. Again, it's really great to see everybody that is tuning back in now. It's really great to have you guys. Again, I think that is about it. Oh yeah. So one more big thing. If you have subscribed, okay, if you are one of the people in the live chat right now that have subscribed, go to the channel, hit the notification bell, and make sure that you have selected all. That's the biggest thing. Most people do not have that all setting selected under the notification bell, which means you're not getting notified when new videos go live. It's the best way. It's the best way to make sure you're going to get notified. 100%. Also, if you share the stream with anybody, make sure to tell them, hey, hit that notification bell, hit that all setting, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Otherwise, you're not going to get notified because YouTube is, they do not like to notify people of our streams and our videos severely. I had some statistics from earlier, a few months back. It was like 2 or 3% of people got notified. I think it was like 2%, like in between 2 and 3 of our subscribers got notified whenever a video or a live stream goes live. Basically, directly correlated to the algorithm's hindrance of this information getting out to you guys. So again, the most important thing, hit that all button. Make sure you're commenting. Make sure you're liking. We can get the algorithm's attention and get us bumped back up in those numbers again. Itchy the Killer. Really quick, I'll start now just with a little bit of a Q&A. By the way, if there's anybody that asked questions earlier in the show, and I didn't get to them, I might not be able to get to them in this report. I will try to respond to you. If you have a question at all, you can always PM me them, or you can email them to me. I prefer PMs on Discord. That's the easiest for me to respond to. But as of now, go ahead, ask questions in the live chat, and I will go ahead and we'll take a few minutes to answer some questions and read some comments here. Rakasan 2013 said, glad to help at Nemico. Thank you so much, Rakasan, for tuning in. Justin Time said Pasha update. I think he meant Dasha update. Dasha's doing well. I actually heard from Mehmet recently. We were doing some work. He's working on with some cams, some Ukrainian cams, and I've been looking to add a few to our 24/7 Intel stream. Which, by the way, just kind of a side tangent here. We are running not just one but two 24/7 Intel Situation Room streams now. Okay, so we're running one for Ukraine and one for Taiwan. The Taiwan one will probably be up and down, but the Ukraine one is pretty much consistently 24/7. I do take them down for a few hours during the day sometime to reset. Again, those are basically just consisted of open source intelligence information, very similar to what you see on screen in front of you now, except a little bit more in depth. The Taiwan one has some cams on it. We aren't currently showing any Ukraine cams on the Ukraine Intel Situation Room stream, but I will be taking one of the layout sections. It's like one of these tiny squares you see on screen here in front of you, and I will be adding that as kind of a camera square there. It will basically alternate through cameras and show ones that are showing activity. I have a little script that was written up by one of our developers in our Discord server. Basically detects flashing, it detects any signs of artillery strikes, bombardment, or activity. And then those cameras that have the activity will be shown on screen. So you're not just sitting there watching fluff all day. Even though we had a lot of fun doing that earlier in the war, I'm kind of shifting my focus more towards the data now and showing you some of this open source intelligence on screen for those Intel streams, as well as just kind of like the main stuff when it comes to those cams, etc. Jillian says, thank you so much for letting us know tonight what happened. Much appreciated on the site. No problem, Jillian. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Just in time, again, he asked about the Dasha update. Yeah, Dasha is doing good. I forgot if he's back with Mehmet or if he's still in Poland. I know somebody in chat, 5 people are going to know the answer to that. I think he was, last time I checked, he was back with Mehmet, I'm pretty sure. He sent me some New Year's pictures over of Dasha. Some of the cutest stuff I'd seen in a while. Always good to see and hear from always good to see and hear from Mehmet and Dasha. Rakasan says, I hope my mass posting in Discord these past several months are still good to do with yourself being back. I know I post a ton of stuff. That is 100% okay. I don't mind you guys posting what you want in the Discord. There's really no limits on it. Earlier in the war, we had limits, you guys. We had to do a lot of filtering, a lot of banning during the early stages of the war, mostly because just the sheer amount of trolls and Russian bot accounts was insane. Absolutely insane. I had a report, actually. I spoke to some people at YouTube months ago, and I had reached out to them about something else unrelated, and I ended up talking to them about some of like the Russian bot accounts that they had seen, and I mean, it was something like, upwards of 5,000 to 6,000 Russian bot accounts ended up being removed from our channel. So these are accounts that were created either via a manual system or an automated system, and basically just used to spread misinformation in live chats, not just on our channel, but many different channels covering the war in Ukraine. Miss Tiger Eyes said, "Will you be trying to do any live cams of Ukraine or Taiwan?" Yeah. So as I said, we have some live cams of Taiwan already on the Taiwan data stream, 24/7 data stream. The Ukraine cams, I'll be making that addition to the 24/7 cam stream probably within the next few days. Here, I'll be adding that cam system in. Again, they won't be it won't be a lot, but it'll be like 1 or 2 of those squares will be showing some cam data, and we'll see how that goes from there. Again, I've been kind of focusing more on the open source intelligence side of things and kind of looking at facts and data more so than those cams because, again, later in the war, those cams have been less and less valuable. Early in the war, they were extremely valuable, and I think when Taiwan goes down, if the invasion of Taiwan occurs, those cams will come in handy again. But again, it became kind of an operational security issue at one point with Ukraine cams. Not just that, but it's now become less valuable as a lot of those frontline areas don't have cams that really show anything. And even in the major cities, a lot of those cams are not positioned anywhere near targets that will be tacked or shelled. We do occasionally see, a flash on stream at night, etc., showing an incoming strike. But again, we want to show kind of the most valuable data as much as possible. Somebody asked, I couldn't see who it was. Somebody asked, I think it might have been Jillian. Somebody asked if I was going to use the avatar. We're not using the avatar anymore. He might have a return in the future someday. That was basically an early rough attempt at me. I don't know if you guys know of the concept of a VTuber, aka a virtual YouTuber. All right. So that was my first. I'm pretty sure I'm the first virtual newscaster ever. If I'm not mistaken, first 100% virtual newscaster, imagery wise, that avatar. I think I was the first to do that, if I'm not mistaken. So the first news related VTuber. It wasn't received as well as I liked it, and it got a little, it was a little glitchy sometimes, and it wasn't as high a quality as I like. And I would like to bring you guys a higher standard of quality than I did with those early, reports and stuff. So I'm going to try to improve as much as I can. Eventually, we might make a return to the avatar, or maybe we might go a different direction. We might go maybe the live action direction, and I might start doing this in front of a camera for you guys. We might do that down the road. We'll see how it goes. Actually, probably at 100,000 subscribers. If I ever do happen to reach 100,000 subscribers, we will most likely make the move to doing camera-related reporting. I have equipment for that. I got most of the stuff I would need to do that, and to do a high-quality report. It would, I would do it if I were to do it. It would be on the same level as you see on most mainstream news like shows and airings and reports. So we're talking, a full set, all that stuff, all 9 yards. It would mostly be done virtually, but we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes if we ever make it to that point. But let me see here. Where are we at? Joe Blowing Wind says, "Can you give a shout out to Sydney with a super chat there?" Thank you so much, Sydney, for tuning in tonight. Shout out to you, Sydney. Not sure who Sydney is, Joe Blowing Wind, but I hope they're tuning in. And if they are, thank you so much for tuning in, Sydney. And again, Joe Blowing Wind, thank you so much for the support tonight, man. It means a lot. And again, I think I gave you the VIP rank over on the Discord. If I haven't already, get on me about that. If any of you have supported and you haven't gotten your VIP rank, you can always just PM me on the Discord with like a little proof of something that you supported the channel, and I will immediately toss you to that VIP rank. Okay. Again, thank you guys so much. Let me see. Where am I at here? Hugo. Thank you so much, Hugo, for tuning in tonight from LA, I hope, as usual. Maiden Square Camp was a good one. Yes, that was. Those were the golden days. I mean, you can't really say that because it was the start of a country being invaded. But for us here on the stream, those were our golden hour. Was those first days? I mean, the amount of good that we were able to do when it came to reporting on this conflict in those early days, and not just to you guys, but we reported to the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense. I mean, there was some open source intelligence data that made its way to the Ukrainians from our live streams. Okay, and just that alone is mind-boggling to me. The fact that clips from our streams made it onto mainstream news, the fact that clips, like we had U.S. senators watching our stuff, all right? That is absolutely mind-blowing to me. I never could imagine that we've been able to achieve some of the things that we achieved in those early days of the war, and we will continue to achieve. Miss Tiger Eye says, "Yeah, where's mine, dude? Where did mine go?" Actually, I don't. Yeah, that's a good question, Miss Tiger. I'm pretty sure you were a member. I'm pretty much 100% sure. Oh, there we go. Okay. Looks like it came back there. Might have needed to refresh the page, maybe. Itchy the Killer asks, Wednesdays only. Yes. Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is when we do these intelligence reports. Again, I mentioned this earlier in the show, but these are no longer just an hour, but more like 2 to 3 hours. So we're doing a much longer show now. We're covering a much wider range of topics, not just Ukraine. We're not just going in depth on Ukraine, but we're going in depth on Taiwan. We're going in depth on all sorts of global security issues, cyber issues, all sorts of stuff. So part of me is really glad that we've been able to expand out beyond Ukraine, because for the longest time there's a lot of stuff I wanted to cover, and I feel like finding my niche will be better. Will be better suited to, just on a broader range of global security issues instead of just covering one topic. Of course, we will continue to primarily focus on Ukraine until this war comes to a conclusion, because at the moment it's the largest global security threat. Is Ukraine, second to China, I believe, and the situation in Taiwan. Jillian says, yes, Jam Friday. We need it at Omnisaya this Friday, 13th. You're back. Well, thank you so much, Jillian. I don't know if I'll be able to do anything this Friday, but I might be able to get that video up Friday. I'm working on it now. I'll definitely be uploading this report either tonight or tomorrow. Again, I have to update it, so I'm going to try to get it edited, as quickly as I possibly can, and get that posted for everybody that missed this live stream tonight. Oh, Michelle Welch says, "Will you do a jam night?" That was fun. Jillian and I got crocked. Actually, maybe, yeah. I wouldn't mind doing something like that eventually. I am a music producer myself, I DJ, so I really liked doing that music stream with you guys. That was pretty fun. One hard part is the copyright side of things gets a little iffy with that. I could maybe get away with it just live. We'd have to see. I'd probably have to get a track list made up if I were to do something like that, but we'll see how it goes. I would love to do something like that in the future going forward, so it's definitely in the cards. Speedy Squirrel, actually, hold on. First, we got Crypto Santa Claus. Nemico Network Taiwan officer reveals details of rare interaction with NATO. Reuters interesting reading. Crypto, if you want to send that over to me on the Discord, I can take a look at that. I might feature it in next week's report when we talk about Taiwan. Speedy Squirrel says, can you promise no squirrel firework videos? I can promise no squirrel firework videos. I don't think it will be harming any squirrels in the making of our content. Miss Tiger Eye, at Michelle Welch, wanted to make those Saint Javelin gnomes. I remember those. Those would be awesome. Some of the stuff that some creators, one video I'm going to be doing, I might either do it as a live stream or a video, I'm not sure yet, but one video I'll be doing soon at some point is we're going to be going through all of the Nemico memes, all of the Ukrainian war memes, all of the Nemico memes that were created during the war, all of the good artwork that was sent over by you guys during the war. There's also, we have like hundreds of people that sent in images of like their battle stations, so like their computer setups, with all their screens, and it was like all of them showing the Nemico live stream on them. And I mean, I had one guy send over a video of him watching the Nemico live stream in his VR headset and like all sorts of stuff. So I want to do a video showcasing some of the contributions you guys made, art-wise, etc., to the channel. Rakasan says that meme channel is loaded. Absolutely loaded. We got all sorts of great content to show you guys. So I'll definitely be doing a meme video at some point, and a Ukrainian, basically like artwork video. We'll see how it goes. But I definitely want to cover some of this stuff, some of the amazing stuff that you guys have done, sent my way over the past. Actually, it's almost been a year now, so I should say about a year. So it's hard to imagine. It feels like yesterday this all started, and it's hard to imagine that we're coming up on a year in about a month. So where we at here? Mike Berry says, I'd let you shoot my 6-inch mortar tube. I would 100% like that, Mike Berry. Thank you so much again for tuning in tonight. It's always nice to have a fellow pyro in the live chat hanging out with me here. Patty Wax says the music stream was awesome. Glad to know. Yeah, I very much enjoyed doing that music stream. It was I needed a break that day when we did that. I was like, it was kind of a slow day when it came reporting. There wasn't a lot going on, and I was like, you know what, we need a break. Let's jam out. Well, right, guys. Again, thank you so much for tuning in this evening. Again, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, that's the best way to, again, get the algorithm's attention. When you see the videos go live, come in, hit that like button, comment on them, show us that you guys are tuning in. Crypto Santa Claus says, Nemico Network, maybe a javelin live shooting. If I could get my hands on one, I would totally like to. In fact, in recent months, I've thought a lot about it, and I've been looking into the possibility of reporting from the ground in Ukraine, possibly taking like a 1 week trip over there. I have some friends over there that I could stay with. Basically, we'd be looking at maybe eventually at getting like a fundraiser together to get some funds together to go over to Ukraine, visit some of the locations that we watched on live cams at the start of the war. I would probably split it up into like a series of videos. Might even do like an on the ground live stream from Ukraine. But mainly just to visit a lot of the areas that the Russians have pulled out of, film some of the damage, talk to people, get interviews on the street, basically over 7 days, get as much recording, as much reporting as I can possibly get. I would really like to do that eventually. I would hope to do it before the war ends, but even after the war, I would hope to do it before the war ends. But even if it has to wait till after the war is over, so be it. But I would like to eventually go there sooner rather than later and get some on-the-ground reporting from you guys, get some in-person interviews, and maybe visit some of the locations that we covered earlier in the war, talk to some people, etc. Again, as Rakusan says, locate the camera P47. That would 100% be on that list. Visit places around the capital in Kyiv, north of Kyiv. I'd like to go up and see some of those areas that we covered. Go to the east, maybe even to Kharkiv, and see some areas in Kharkiv that we were taking a look at. And again, the biggest thing would be to go over, maybe try to help some people while I'm there, however I can, and get some on-the-ground footage and interviews and some good reporting, and split that up into probably a series of different videos, and cover some like a broad range of topics that a lot of people just simply aren't covering. Things like the effects on civilians, things like just what the day-to-day lives are for some of these people in some of these places that have been absolutely decimated and destroyed, and get a real on-the-ground look at how things are. So that definitely is in the cards for the future going forward. First things first, we'll be, of course, doing the Sign My Rocket fundraiser. I would love to get that. I'll be posting more about that in the coming days, of course. Anyway, after the stream goes down, the 24/7 Intel streams will be coming back up. I'll be trying to get the I'll be trying to get the video edited this evening. I might have to wait until tomorrow morning, but I'm going to try to get it out this evening. The edited video for this live report, for this weekly open source intelligence report. We'll have that up on the YouTube channel for anybody that missed it. And if you guys can hop onto that video when it's uploaded, hit the like button, comment, show some love. That'd mean a lot to me, and it would help us in the long run. Of course, share this content. If you like the content, share it. Helps people find this reporting, which is important. Again, I reiterate. Awareness is the biggest part of this battle. Again, subscribe, like, comment, share. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in this evening for your weekly open source intelligence report for the week of the 11th of January, 2023. You've been watching Nemico Network. I know I've probably forgotten 300 things because it's my first report so far since coming back. But we'll have a structure kind of set in stone more for next week's report. But anyway, guys, as always, thank you so much for tuning in. You're watching Nemico Network.
Something that will change our daily lives, that will change history, that will change history, that will change history. That will be the most beautiful day.